Camilla took the initiative and asked, "Do you know how to cook?" Connie shook her head. "We have our food raw sometimes. I usually only drink fresh blood too." Camilla frowned slightly. The two of them sighed at the same time as they stared at the trolley full of all kinds of ingredients. Then, both of them turned to look out of the glass panes at the rest of the staff, who were sitting in a circle and making their own dipping sauces under Mag's instructions, enviously. "I think it shouldn't be that hard. Why don't we read up on this manual first?" Connie retrieved her gaze, and passed a copy of the hot pot manual to Camilla before taking one up and read it intently. "Tripe, use the chopsticks to place it in the boiling soup pot for 1 second, and then take it out of the soup pot for 1 second. Repeat this action 8 times, and it will be ready to eat. Do not cook it for too long, or it will lose its soul," Connie read it out softly. Their gazes landed on the first plate on the top shelf of the trolley, which held some thin slices. The brownish-black slices were soaked in water, and they looked wrinkled. "Is that something from the cow's stomach?" Camilla frowned. As a noble vampire countess, she only had the freshest virgin blood. Even the second best had to be the cleanest pigeon blood. Things coming from an animal's stomach sounded dirty, and Mag was actually getting them to eat that? "Yes. It's so special. I have never eaten something like this before." Connie was very curious. Even the orcs removed the intestines when they ate animals. They had never tried eating any intestines by themselves. Furthermore, the cooking style of dipping it in the pot for 8 times was very special, and it sounded very simple. "Why don't I try it out?" Connie picked up the long chopsticks excitedly. She had just learned how to use the chopsticks a few days ago, so she picked up a piece of the tripe rather shakily, and put it into the boiling soup pot. The soup moved a little when the tripe was put in, but when she took the chopsticks out, there was nothing on it anymore. "Whoa!" Connie stared at the empty chopsticks, stunned. "Oh dear, it went in but never came up." There was a layer of dried cut chilies and Sichuan peppers in the red soup pot, and the thin tripe disappeared in the pot as soon as it went in. Connie tried to find the tripe in the soup pot by dragging the chopsticks around, but she couldn't find it at all. "You can quit looking for it. That piece of tripe had already lost its soul." Camilla pointed at the alarm clock at the side. "I am sorry, tripe. Please rest in peace." Connie retrieved the chopsticks with grief. It seemed like this piece of tripe was not meant to be hers. Her chopstick skills simply wouldn't allow her to complete the 8 dips action, so she had to give up on tripe, this novel food item. She picked up the hot pot manual again. "Duck intestine. Use the chopsticks. Repeat this action for 8 times until the duck intestine curls up." Connie was speechless for a moment as she stared at that long and narrow duck intestine. Then, she raised her head and asked Camilla, "Will we be starved to death?" Camilla pondered that seriously before she stared at Connie's throat. "Why not let me have a bite then?" "No, no. Let us continue eating the hot pot instead." Connie retracted her neck, and continued to flip through the manual. Different from the 2 clueless people in the restaurant, the others outside had already sat around the table, and made their own individual dipping sauces with Mag's instructions. The customers in the line had already surrounded the table in 3 loops, and looked at them curiously. Boss Mag said they were going to show them what was hot pot dipping. At first, everyone thought he was going to show them how he cooked, but looking at the situation now, it didn't look like it. Boss Mag is actually so young. Vanessa, who was standing in the front, was sizing up Mag curiously. She had been to the royal kitchen a few times, and the top chefs were old. Even the youngest was a greasy middle-aged man. However, this Boss Mag only looked like he was in his early 30s. He was tall and had good skin. He definitely didn't feel greasy at all. The 2 thin mustaches on his upper lips even added on to his mature charisma. There was always a warm smile on his face, which gave people a good impression. Moreover, there are so many beautiful maidens. Lola was staring at those maidens. Every one of them was so beautiful that they were comparable to the princess, and they were just the service staff of the restaurant. Boss Mag, are you going to show us how you eat it? Harrison asked. Yes. The hot pot is a new way to enjoy good food. However, everyone might not be familiar with it, so we are going to demonstrate it first. When the hot pot is released officially, everyone will know how to eat it, Mag said with a smile. It was bad enough when it was only little boss eating in front of us. Now, everyone in the restaurant is going to eat in front of us. This is going to be really bad, Harrison said aggrievedly. The other customers also seemed to suddenly realize what was going to happen soon. Their expressions all began to become weird. First of all, we are going to make a dipping sauce that we like for ourselves. This will make the food that was cooked in the same pot better suited to your taste. Mag showed his dipping sauce's saucer to the crowd before holding the manual up in his hands. This is a manual on how to eat the hot pot. It has listed all the ingredients, cooking methods and time. Just follow the instructions, and then dip the cooked food in the dipping sauce. The delicacy will be ready to enjoy. So, this also means that for this hot pot, we got to cook the food by ourselves? We still have to do it ourselves? Can't we have it ready-made? I am a killer in the kitchen. I'm afraid I might kill myself. It sounds so troublesome. I am only 18, am I able to do that? All of them began to have a discussion after hearing that. They were very doubtful about this new method of eating. The soul and fun of the hot pot is in the participation. You can chit-chat while you wait. Slow down the pace of life and enjoy the good food is the true essence of the hot pot. Mag shook his head smilingly before he placed his finger to his lips. Please keep quiet while watching others eat. Be good and keep quiet. Amy turned around and gravely said to everyone, I am very hungry now. All of them kept quiet after seeing the dancing purplish-blue flame in Amy's hand. However, they were still looking at Mag with a suspicious gaze. If they could make delicious food by themselves, why would they have come to Mamie restaurant? Mag retrieved his gaze from the customers, and said to the people sitting at the table, you can cook anything in the hot pot, but when it comes to the top 3 most scrumptious items, the tripe and duck intestine could take up 2 of the spots. Use the chopsticks to pick up a piece of tripe and place it into the boiling soup pot. Make sure the tripe is submerged in boiling red soup and wait for 1 second. Then, take it out of the soup pot immediately and let it cool for 1 second before putting it back into the pot again quickly. Repeat this action 8 times until the tripe has blisters, and that will be the perfect timing. Roll the tripe 1 round in the dipping sauce, and blow at it gently twice before putting it into your mouth. Mag was chewing the spicy and fragrant tripe. Every mouthful was crisp and bouncy. The spicy taste blossomed at the tip of his tongue, and all the sweat glands on his body opened up in the agitation. Tiny drops of sweat began to appear on his forehead. The sound of gulping could be heard. What an unique way of eating! It can be so particular and intricate when it comes to eating a small piece of tripe. This boss Mag is really an expert on food, Vanessa praised in her heart secretly as she gulped while looking at the different ingredients placed on each layer of the trolley. Could there be an unique way to eat each and every ingredient? Timing is of the utmost importance when it comes to scalding the tripe. It will be too chewy if it's scalded for too long, but it will have a fishy smell if it's not scalded enough. However, if you follow the instruction manual, you basically won't have any problems, Mag told Mia and the gang with a smile, and then gestured to the small portion of tripe next to them. Let's try it out. I will try it out too. Amy picked up a piece of tripe with her chopsticks carefully, and placed it in the pot just like Mag did. Then, she lifted it up and repeated the same actions until there were blisters on the tripe. She dipped the tripe that was covered with the glistening red soup in the dipping sauce. She blew at it gently near her mouth before putting it into her mouth. Amy's eyes lit up as her little teeth chewed on the tripe happily, and made sounds that resembled a hamster chewing food. Her intricate tiny face was filled with a blissful expression. After swallowing it, she picked up another piece of tripe immediately, and put it in the pot carefully. She happily exclaimed, "Tripe is so delicious, so I am going to have another one." Moreover, scalding the tripe is fun. Anna had also picked up a piece of tripe accurately, and scalded it in the pot, following Mag's instructions to a T. She soon finished scalding a piece of tripe and ate it. Those who were questioning the hot pot's way of eating were speechless now. After all, if a 4-5 years old girl could do it, it would be embarrassing for an adult to claim it to be difficult. The most important crux was the spicy aroma that was getting increasingly tantalizing with time. It was simply a torture to watch this table full of people chewing on the tripe and singing its praises while they could only watch quietly at the side. The method of eating the duck intestine is basically similar to the tripe. Mag picked up a long piece of duck intestine, and submerged it in the hot pot. After dipping it for a few times, the duck intestine began to curl. He rolled it into dipping sauce before feeding it into his mouth. The perfect timing released the crunchy texture of the duck intestine perfectly. The spicy aromatic red broth had removed the stench of the duck intestine, and gave it a beautiful taste. The crunchy sounds made it feel like the tongue could drop from too much chewing. "Oh, it's so spicy!" Little beads of sweat began to appear on Yabimiya's forehead as soon as she ate the tripe. Her chest was heaving slightly, and light gold dragon scales began to appear on her forehead vaguely. "We will just eat with the clear broth." Elizabeth placed her hand on Mia's wrist, and a cool presence engulfed her instantaneously. The dragon scales that were about to come out went back in again. "Hum." Yabimiya looked at Elizabeth and nodded as she realized something. "This tripe and duck intestine are so scrumptious. As if I have made it myself, eating them gave me a sense of accomplishment." Gina picked up a strip of duck intestine, and put it into the red soup pot, all smiles. She was very excited to be able to participate in the action of cooking. Sliced beef is a very important character among the meat dishes of the hot pot. The superior ribeye sliced beef has very good marbling. It resembles the shape of an eye, and that's why it's called that. The color is bright yet soothing, and it will be thinly sliced. You just have to cook it in the hot pot for a brief moment before taking it out immediately. Mag picked up a piece of thinly sliced fresh beef, and scalded it in the boiling soup pot. The fresh red color turned white very quickly before it was coated with a layer of beautiful red. He lifted it up from the pot, rolled the steaming beef in the dipping sauce, and coated it with sesame oil and gravy. Then, he put it into his mouth. The sliced beef had absorbed the taste of the thick broth perfectly, and that tender and delicate texture was mesmerizing. As he chewed gently, the aroma of the meat began to fill his entire mouth. It was irresistible. Pig's brain. A delicacy that mortals don't dare to try. Sliced lotus root. The best item of the vegetarian hot pot. Enoki mushroom. The representative of the hot pot's mushrooms, Mag gave a simple description for every item that he ate, but he refused to tell them how they tasted. He decided to let them decipher it from his expressions. "My heavens! What crimes have I ever committed? Do the laws still apply here? Kill me! I don't want to suffer like this anymore. Am I the only one who is envious of the staff's meals? Is Boss Mag still recruiting service staff? I don't want the wages, I just want the staff's meals. Sister, count me in." The customers who were watching the table full of people eating happily had numb scalps and chilled limbs, and gulped furiously. They felt they were about to go crazy. Hot pot dipping looks very interesting and scrumptious. I wonder if we can eat it today. Vanessa stared at the hot pot on the table with glowing eyes. "Young mistress, how could you cook for yourself? This isn't something you should do," Lola said softly, shaking her head. "We can dip meat in, and we could also dip vegetarian food in. So, is this hot pot considered a meat dish or a vegetarian dish?" Randy held his chin, and went into deep thoughts at the side. A pair of chubby hands patted Randy's shoulders from the back. Abraham squeezed out from the crowd with a smile, and asked Randy, food critic, I heard Boss Mag released a new item today. Do you feel twisted? Do you feel terrible? Take a look yourself. Whoever is watching this new item is going to feel twisted. Randy crossed his arms and gestured to the front. Today, the staff of Mamie Restaurant is provoking us together. Abraham was shocked to see how the Mamie Restaurant's staff were having their staff meal. He was astounded when he took a look at the surrounding customers, who all had an aggrieved expression. Isn't that so? They not even just eat it first, the crux is we can only watch. Harrison nodded in agreement before forcing out a smile to ask Amy, who was scalding a duck intestine, "Little boss, is that duck intestine crunchy?" Amy lifted up the curled up duck intestine and moved it across Harrison's face before dipping it in the sauce. Smiling, she said, "Listen carefully. Crunch, crunch." Amy fed the duck intestine into her mouth and chewed happily before swallowing it, and asked Harrison, "Do you hear its crunchiness?" Crunchy. Harrison nodded with a weird expression, and then made a forced smile. What else could he do? He was also very desperate. When could he ever swindle a piece of food from Little Boss? Much still remained to be done for him. "Young mistress." Lola tugged on Vanessa's sleeve, and gestured to her to take note of Abraham, who was standing at the back. "Uncle Abraham." Vanessa's eyes lit up. She shifted to Abraham's side under Lola's protection and tugged on his sleeve. "Erm." Abraham turned his head and looked at Vanessa, who was wearing a veil, in a shock. Who was this young maiden? "Uncle, it's me," Vanessa said softly. Chapter 1228. Will my brain be very delicious too? If Uncle can come here, why couldn't I? Vanessa said, feeling very justified. Then, she grudgingly said, "Furthermore, you came to such a wonderful place by yourself. Isn't it too much? You once said you would bring me along wherever there was nice food. Isn't this place too far away? Even if I wanted to bring you here, your father wouldn't agree." Abraham felt a little maligned. Even though he used to bring Vanessa around in search of good food, that was in Rodu, and they had many experts protecting them secretly along the way. But looking at Vanessa's dressing, she most likely had snuck out by herself. He wondered if His Majesty knew that she came to Chaos City. This lass was always obedient. He didn't know what got into her this time that she got the guts to come to Chaos City. "It doesn't matter anymore. I am already here. You can write a letter to father after we have our dinner. You can tell him not to worry, and that I am having a good time here with you. We will go back after we have enough of the good food," Vanessa said smilingly. Indeed, Abraham had a bitter smile. This lass had indeed snuck out secretly, and now she was pushing the burden to him. It was going to be troublesome. "Mister, who is this young lady?" Randy turned around and looked at Vanessa curiously. Although she was wearing a face veil, the pair of golden eyes was especially bright and innocent, just like a clear spring. He couldn't help but stare. "My niece." Abraham stepped forward to block Randy's view. Although he found this young man rather interesting after getting to know him, nobody could have any ideas on Vanessa, not even the tiniest spark, or else he wouldn't be able to answer to the king. "This lady is beautiful and graceful. She doesn't resemble you at all," Randy said with a smile. "Hello, I am Vanessa," Vanessa introduced herself graciously. Even though she didn't like to interact with people because of her teeth, coming here gave her a sense of relaxation as if she had found her people. She wanted to know more people who loved good food just like her. She wanted to be friends with them. "Nice to meet you, Miss Vanessa. I am Randy, a food critic." Randy smiled. It was rare to meet a girl who was so clean and graceful. Vanessa's eyes lit up after hearing that, and she curiously asked, "Oh? You are a food critic? Which magazine do you contribute to?" She had almost read all the gourmet magazines that existed on the Norland continent. As long as the quality was still okay, she wouldn't miss a single edition. Randy shrugged and humbly said, Mediterranean has opened a new column recently, but it's still quite amateurish. Mediterranean. Vanessa pondered for a while before her eyes lit up. I remember now. Are you that must-eat meat Randy who swore that he would bring the most scrumptious meat dish to his readers? You have read my articles before. Every single edition. The stuff Mr. Randy wrote is interesting. I didn't expect I would meet a loyal fan here. It's so touching, Randy said excitedly. He felt very flattered as he didn't expect there would be a pretty young maiden who loved his words so much. She could be in love with him for a long time. Vanessa has a habit of reading every edition of all the gourmet magazines. Abraham shot down Randy's conjecture. Oh. I see, Randy was stunned, and he touched his nose awkwardly. In this case, this young lady was a loyal reader of all the gourmet critics on the Norland continent. Yes. I like how you people share about delicious food. Words could give us a lot to imagine and let people know more about good food. Vanessa smiled and nodded. You'd better think about what to write in the manuscript that you are supposed to hand in to your editor this month first, Abraham said, feeling a little schadenfreude. This fellow had always boasted about his literary abilities to him, but he suddenly acted humble in front of a young lady. He had to put his guard up against him. It doesn't matter. I will definitely write it out once I go back today. Randy waved his hand nonchalantly, feeling very confident about himself. However, he didn't pay any more attention to Vanessa, and continued to watch Mag and the gang dipping food in the hot pot. This hot pot meal lasted for almost an hour, and the people watching at the entrance had formed many loops around them. Many people thought there was a duel and rushed here to watch a good show. However, they found that the crowd was actually watching people eating enthusiastically and felt cheated. Still, they, too, were watching enthusiastically afterward. Mag, who was all sweaty from eating, scooped a few rounds in the pot using the slotted ladle. He picked up the last few small pieces of potatoes, put them in Amy's and Anna's bowl, and officially declared the dinner was over. Mag only felt very full and delightful when he put down the slotted ladle. He had never had such an enjoyable hot pot meal before. The best ingredients, tasty soup broths, perfect dipping sauce, and the people he wanted to have hot pot with. This was a perfect hot pot meal. Hot pot is so delicious, Amy said happily while chewing on the potatoes. Yabimiya and the rest also looked very satisfied. Although it took them double the usual time to have this meal, this new and innovative eating method was indeed very interesting, and the taste was rich and scrumptious. I have a great time eating this. In the restaurant, Connie slumped over the chair with a sated smile. The tip of her tongue was still numb, and every pore on her body seemed to be opened up. As if she had just gone through a hearty fight, her body and spirit were in an extremely comfortable state. She and Camilla had finished all the dishes except the tripes and duck intestines. Although the pig's brain is a little too stupid, it's extraordinarily delicious, just like tofu pudding. Camilla was still reminiscing on the half of the pig's brain that she had eaten earlier. If you say so, will my brain be very delicious too? Connie went deep into her thoughts. It could be even more delicious, Camilla said after pondering seriously. The two of them looked at each other's head and went into deep silence. Everyone, please line up and wait for a while. We will be getting ready and open for business at 5 p.m. sharp, Mag said to the surrounding customers as he got up, while Mia and the rest began to keep the dining table. The onlooking crowd began to disperse and form two long lines. Now I understand why so many people are willing to wait in line. Such delicacies are worth the wait. Vanessa stood in the line with an expectant smile. Chapter 1229 Are you still coming over tonight? But what made people feel horrible was that they could only watch and salivate as they had no chance of trying it tonight, because the designated hot pot area was still under renovation, and the actual opening date was still unknown. I feel Boss Mag has done that on purpose. This fellow is very bad. Randy sighed. Although he was rather annoyed, he could do nothing about it. Boss Mag has an unbelievable creativity for cooking. It is a whole new method of eating. In order to let his customers accept and learn quickly, he did a demonstration himself. Isn't this quality that an outstanding chef and restaurateur should possess? Vanessa praised instead, and she looked at Mag, who went into the restaurant, with admiration. He already has a kid, Abraham said carefully as he tried to guess her thoughts. It would also be an equally terrible affair if she fell in love with a chef. But, there are still so many good maidens lining up, hoping to be little boss's stepmother. There was a hint of envy in Randy's voice. Oh, yes. That little elf is so adorable. Vanessa couldn't help but nod. She was overcome by Amy's cuteness when she was eating earlier. Ahem. What do you want to eat today? It will be Uncle's treat. Abraham cleared his throat and changed the topic. I want to have eggplant with garlic sauce, which is that dish Derek, the food critic, wrote about in the previous edition of Vegetarianism. I have been thinking about it for half a month, and even dreamt about it many times, Vanessa said with anticipation in her eyes. She had left the palace because of this dish. That is indeed a scrumptious dish. Abraham nodded. He was also fascinated with the delicious eggplant with garlic sauce that went so well with steamed rice for a period of time. Vegetarianism. Randy cocked his eyebrow. As a staunch supporter of the meatitarian, he didn't expect this young maiden to be bewitched by the vegetarian heretics. This would not do, he had to begin his mission of promoting meatitarian right now. Miss Vanessa, as a meatitarian, I am more inclined to recommend you the Mamie restaurant's meat dishes. Boss Mag's roast beef kebab is known to be the best in the roast meat arena. His spicy grilled fish has subverted one's imagination on the grilled fish. The fat but not greasy Peking duck, the sourish and spicy steamed fish head with diced hot red peppers, the beggar's chicken that emerged from a mud casing. Meat dishes are rightfully the main characters in this restaurant and our lives, Randy said with a sincere expression. Even though I think this fellow doesn't always speak the truth, what he just said was true. In the Mamie restaurant, the meat dishes are the real main characters. Abraham nodded. He had gotten fatter after he arrived here. Thanks to the damn meat. But, I still want to try the eggplant with garlic sauce first, Vanessa answered with a smile. Of course, I am not going to miss out any of the restaurant's delicacies, regardless if they are the meat dishes or vegetarian dishes. This is a wise choice. Abraham nodded. He liked Vanessa because her character resembled his. As long as the food was good, they wouldn't care who made it or what ingredients were used to make it. They would simply eat it. But, Randy still tried to say something. Has Mr. Randy tried the eggplant with garlic sauce before? Vanessa asked. I did. Randy nodded before awkwardly saying, but, that was because the menu wrote fish aroma, I thought it was a meat dish one, was it nice? It was delish. Randy nodded with a complicated expression. Even though he hated to admit that, as a gourmand, he didn't want to lie when it came to good food. Then, I will try all the dishes that Mr. Randy recommended earlier after I have the eggplant with garlic sauce, Vanessa said with a smile as she was rather impressed with Randy's honesty. After Mag and the rest kept the stuff and went into the restaurant, they found Connie and Camilla staring at each other's heads. They couldn't help but ask with confusion, what are you two doing? We are thinking whose brain will be more delicious. Connie raised her head and looked at Mag. Isn't the pig's brain delicious? The restaurant descended into silence as everyone looked at Connie and Camilla with a complicated expression. In fact, your brains should be comparable to the pig's brains. Mag nodded. The two of them heaved a sigh of relief at the same time. It would be embarrassing if they lost to a pig. I have enough. Goodbye. Camilla stood up and walked to the back kitchen. Goodbye. Big sister Camilla. Amy waved to Camilla before she suddenly recalled something, and asked, are you still coming over tonight? No, I am not. Camilla blushed instantly and hastened her steps. In the blink of an eye, she disappeared within a black fog. Hey! Everyone's gazes landed onto Mag curiously. There was plenty of hidden information in Amy's words. I am going to take a bath and change. Let's get ready for business, everyone. Mag walked to the stairs without giving anything away. It would only make things worse the more he tried to explain. The best solution was to simply walk away. Amy, did Camilla spend the night in the restaurant yesterday? Mia's gossipy soul began to burn with intensity. Everyone began to look at Amy curiously. No, Amy shook her head. It seemed like she got to keep this a secret for her father. All of them weren't convinced by Amy's conflicting words, but it was going to be operation hours soon, so they didn't continue to ask. Connie, send this helping of Buddha jumps over the wall to your master, and your job will be considered done today. Mag came down from upstairs, wrapped up a helping of Buddha jumps over the wall in the kitchen, and passed it to Connie. Learn from your master as much as you can. Yes. Connie took the Buddha jumps over the wall and nodded gravely. I promise I will complete the mission. And remember to use the door this time. Don't keep scaling their walls. Mag couldn't help but remind Connie again. Connie turned and said with resignation, but, Master wants me to scale the walls. He said he wants to test how many levels I am able to access today. Mag raised his eyebrow slightly. It seemed like Connie's master was not simple, either. He actually utilized Basti prison as a test field for his disciple. Since he was the deputy warden, Mag couldn't comment much. All right, just follow your master's instructions. Connie went out, fully suited up. Mag glanced at the clock which showed 5 o'clock, so he walked to the door and opened it wide. He smiled and said to the long line of customers, Welcome to Mamie Restaurant. One transliteration of eggplant with garlic sauce is fish aroma eggplant. Chapter 1230. Our little princess seemed to have rather bad teeth. What an exquisite restaurant, Vanessa praised. Even though it wasn't resplendent, every detail was exquisite. The use of the soothing color of the natural wood and green plants made people calm down and relax quickly. What was even more amazing was that the customers would all try to make up a complete table by themselves. Humans would sit with orcs, while elves and demons could sit across each other without getting into a serious argument, and they instead would greet each other familiarly as if they were friends. One would never be able to see such a scene in Rodu. Or, strictly speaking, one wouldn't be able to see such a scene once they walked out of this restaurant. Lola was also sizing up the surroundings in amazement. At the same time, she was wary of that orc who was sitting next to them. If this brute wanted to do harm to the princess, she could only slow him down by hugging his legs to give the princess a head start. Are there any private rooms? Lola inquired softly. Young mistress doesn't like to eat together with others. Mamie Restaurant doesn't provide private rooms. Moreover, if you can't make up 4 people for a table, then you have to share a table with strangers, Randy explained as he looked at Vanessa's face veil. This maiden had such beautiful eyes, so why was she wearing a face veil? Does it matter? Abraham looked at Vanessa with a hint of worry in his eyes. He knew Vanessa had dental problems, and she didn't take part in any big court banquet for the past few years, but Randy was right. Mamie Restaurant didn't provide any private rooms, and Boss Mag would never cook for Vanessa privately. This was his restaurant, so even if the city lord of Chaos City came here, he had to obey the rules too. It's fine. I'll just eat here. I like the environment. Vanessa shook her head and removed her face veil. The exquisite face and fair skin momentarily stunned Randy, who was sitting across from her. Why, young mistress? Lola gazed at Vanessa, who'd just removed her face veil, in a shock. This was the first time that Vanessa removed her veil in front of others. She felt gratified yet worried. It could be dangerous if someone recognized the princess. Abraham was a little shocked too, but he quickly revealed a gratified smile. His Majesty had tried his best to get rid of Vanessa's inferiority complex for the past few years. He didn't expect she would remove the veil on her own accord after she got here. This could be considered a good thing. Vanessa smiled without revealing her teeth. She grabbed her skirts, feeling a little strange. She enjoyed the relaxed and pleasurable environment without the shackles of the identity of the princess of the Roth Empire. She was just like any other maiden, so a little flaw shouldn't be something that was unacceptable, right? You can order whatever you want from the menu. Abraham flipped open the menu and placed it in front of Vanessa. Is Mr. giving us a treat today? Randy said with a smile. You are not included. Abraham nodded with a smile. I knew you are a stingy fellow. Randy pursed his lips, but he wasn't angry. He faced Vanessa, who was reading the menu seriously, and said, Miss Vanessa, although you're already extremely beautiful, I still recommend you to try this savory tofu pudding. It only has 150 portions for every mealtime, and is already the beauty holy grail for many ladies in Chaos City. Oh! Vanessa's eyes lit up. Was there really a food that would make people beautiful after eating it? Of course, tofu pudding should be eaten sweet. Abraham suddenly remembered the king and queen's sweet restrictions for Vanessa, and halted his words. This lass's teeth became like this because her favorite was sweets. Then, he reluctantly said, of course, savory tofu pudding is also very nice. You should have the savory one, hey? Mister, you finally decided to come to the side of the light today and join the savory gang. Randy looked at Abraham in a shock. The two of them would have a healthy argument whenever they ordered tofu pudding. He didn't expect Abraham to recommend Miss Vanessa the savory tofu pudding today. Vanessa had already found the picture of the sweet tofu pudding on the menu. The golden syrup drizzled over the tender white tofu pudding felt tantalizingly sweet, and her eyes lit up upon seeing it. This sweet tofu pudding looks delicious. Young mistress, you can't have any more sweet things. Lola shook her head with worry written all over her face. The royal physician had said the princess might lose all her teeth if she continued to eat sweets. Vanessa's gaze was totally attracted by it. Extending one finger, she pleaded, I'll just have one bowl, just one bowl. A hesitant look appeared on Abraham's and Lola's face. They simply couldn't resist Vanessa's pleas, as she was such a cutie. Tofu pudding is so delicious and it enhances one's beauty, so why can't Miss Vanessa have a bowl of it? This is not something that we get to eat every day. Randy tried to help Vanessa out. Although it was the sweet tofu pudding that she wanted to have, looking at the way she pleaded, the flavor didn't seem to matter to him anymore. Then, you can only have it once, Abraham said seriously. He was responsible for Vanessa since she was in Chaos City now. Besides getting her back to Rhoda safely, he had to take of her every single need in Chaos City. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to face the king when he got back. Vanessa nodded profusely before smiling at Randy, and said, thank you. Randy was shocked when he saw the black and yellow teeth in Vanessa's mouth when she smiled. She had an angelic face, but her teeth looked like those belonging to an 80-years-old lady, perhaps even worse. They gave him a shock. Vanessa saw Randy's expression, and suddenly realized she wasn't wearing the face veil. She swiftly used her hand to cover her mouth. Her gaze darkened and she lowered her head. Lola glared at Randy. This fellow was exactly the same as the rest of them. He hurt the princess's feelings as well. Abraham sighed in his heart. Randy's reaction was normal, but Vanessa's feelings were a little fragile, so she most likely was hurt. Randy quickly realized his faux pas, and apologetically said, my apologies, Miss Vanessa. I didn't mean to offend you. Vanessa lowered her head in silence for a while before releasing the skirts that she was grabbing tightly, and raised her head up. She forced a smile, shook her head, and said, it's all right. I am used to it. Randy was silent as he didn't have the words to console her. Vanessa Andre, female, 16 years old. Serious cavities with a long-term abnormal corrosion, in the kitchen, Mag looked at the young lady sitting across Abraham with narrowed eyes. Our little princess seemed to have rather bad teeth. Mag had just read all the information about the Roth Empire that day. This princess, who was highly favored by the king, had rarely appeared in public in recent years. As she wasn't a crucial character, there wasn't much written about her in the information. It was also mentioned as a possible secret ailment's result. Now, Mag was almost sure what that secret ailment was. The caries that he saw. For a beautiful maiden, it was indeed difficult to accept the caries that were affecting her looks and grace. Mag appraised Vanessa for a moment. He had to admit that the André family genes were indeed very good. The tall and handsome Sean, the brooding Josh, and the beautiful Vanessa, except the third prince who looked like a monkey, they were all very good looking. The king had just sent someone to summon me to Rhoda a few days ago. Why did this princess come to Chaos City on her own? What's the motive of her trip? Mag had many questions in his mind. The peace treaty renegotiation between the species was going to start soon. Given Princess Vanessa's status, she should be staying in the palace obediently during this troubled period. Coming to Chaos City wasn't a smart thing to do. On the other hand, Vanessa and her companions had already placed their orders, and were waiting for their food to be served patiently. Because of what transpired earlier, the ambience between them was a little awkward. Randy wanted to say something to relieve the awkwardness. For example, he didn't mind that Miss Vance's teeth were rotten, or even if her teeth were rotten, she still had a beautiful smile. But after some serious consideration, he finally chose to remain silent. All these words would only hurt, and not console her. Vanessa's emotions had slowly calmed down. Compared to the behind-the-back snickering and unabashed sarcasm, Randy's reaction was already very restrained, and he didn't mean any harm. However, she still felt inferior about her caries, which still looked rather frightening. Abraham remained seated quietly as he observed Vanessa carefully. This lass was very outgoing and energetic when she was young. She always pestered him to bring her around to eat good food. She had become quiet and reserved in recent years because of her teeth. He also wouldn't get to see her once for half a year. If coming to Chaos City could resolve her issue, then her leaving the palace wasn't such a bad thing. The eggplant with garlic sauce that you've ordered. The sweet tofu pudding will be served later. Enjoy. Yabimiya placed 2 bowls of steamed rice and a helping of eggplant with garlic sauce in front of Vanessa and Lola. Thank you, Vanessa said politely, but her gaze was totally attracted by the fish in the plate. The fish that was split open in half and carved beautifully. A thick golden red sauce was drizzled over the fish meat. A rich meat aroma assailed her. All the aromas of the meat dishes she had before couldn't compare to this one. It smells even better than in my dreams, Vanessa murmured. She knew it was an eggplant and not a fish on the plate, but the chef's excellent cutting skills and unique cooking method made this eggplant look exactly like a fish. She had dreamt about this eggplant with garlic sauce many times, but she only realized her imagination was inadequate when the real thing was placed in front of her. Isn't this a fish? Lola was also sizing the dish up curiously. She had heard the princess talk about it many times, and it was the cause for their daring escape from the palace. They crossed half of the continent to come to Chaos City all because of this eggplant with garlic sauce. This was simply crazy. Taste this eggplant with garlic sauce that you have been pining for, Abraham said with a smile. Vanessa answered, and quickly placed a piece of eggplant in her mouth with her chopsticks. The soft eggplant seemed to melt in her mouth instantly, and then the 4 distinct tastes of sour, spicy, sweet, and savory exploded in her mouth at the same time. It inspired her usual calm taste buds like a dormant volcano had suddenly exploded, and its lava was giving her tongue the most intense rush. Every taste was so distinct, yet they intertwined with one another so harmoniously. It made her lose herself in the taste uncontrollably. The taste buds were trying to resist it initially, but then they gave in to the taste and celebrated. She swallowed slowly after her mouth had experienced the mad rush of tastes. The exquisite taste lingered in her mouth. Oh! What an unbelievable taste! Vanessa praised. Even though she had read Derek's article, and imagined how it tasted numerous times, she realized words were inadequate when it came to describing the taste of the eggplant with garlic sauce after she had tasted it for herself. The revelry and craziness at the tip of the tongue and the lingering aroma had all displayed the charisma of this vegetarian dish. Vanessa knew she was totally conquered by this dish. The simple combination of the savory eggplant with garlic sauce with a bowl of steamed rice had blossomed into an unbelievable scrumptious taste. Vanessa, who only had had some dry rations during her journey, couldn't stop eating. Is it really so delicious? Lola looked at the princess, who was a picky eater, yet was so happy and excited, with a hint of suspicion on her face. Vanessa raised her head up from the bowl, and said, "Join me, Lola. I am not hungry. Please go ahead." Lola swiftly shook her head. According to the rules, she wasn't allowed to sit at the same table with the princess, let alone eat together with her. There are not many chances to savor good food like this. It would be a waste to miss it. Vanessa pushed the other bowl of steamed rice to Lola, and smilingly said, "This is an order. Let's eat." "After all, it's on me today," Abraham also said with a smile. He knew Vanessa always treated this maid who grew up with her exceptionally well. Furthermore, he didn't mind who was eating together with him at the same table. Since both the princess and the duke had spoken, even though Lola wasn't very willing, she didn't dare to reject any more. She picked up a piece of eggplant, and put it on the steamed rice before eating them together. Oh! The eyes of Lola, who didn't expect much, glowed. The soft eggplant seemed to have melted on the rice, and the sour, spicy, sweet and savory gravy had seeped into the rice. The more she chewed, the better it tasted. It is the unlikable eggplant. How did it become so delicious? Lola's heart was filled with shock. She had tasted many scrumptious foods cooked by many famous chefs as the princess's personal maid, but she had to admit that none of the chef's delicacies was comparable to this. "Vanessa, what's wrong?" Abraham asked with concern. He seemed a little nervous. Could there be something wrong with this dish? "Oh no." Lola reacted quickly, and anxiously asked, "Young mistress, are your teeth hurting again? You cannot eat anything too flavorful." "I'm all right. I just need to drink some water." Vanessa shook her head. The sharp pain would happen occasionally since it was too difficult for her to eat only plain food. Lola quickly walked to Yabimiya, and said, "Excuse me, can we have a glass of water?" "Sure, please wait for a while." Yabimiya glanced at Vanessa and turned to the kitchen. She explained the customer's needs to Mag, and passed Lola a glass of warm water. "Thank you," Lola said gratefully. She returned to their table quickly, and passed the water to Vanessa. Her teeth ache by just eating the eggplant with garlic sauce. That is a serious case of cavities. Mag pondered for a while. It seemed that it was important to educate everyone about brushing their teeth twice a day. Otherwise, even the noble princess would also be tormented by cavities. Besides, the customers who came all had varying degrees of cavities. Ding! New mission, please help Vanessa with treating her cavities so that she can enjoy delicacies again. If the mission is successful, you will receive a recipe for durian pizza. Mission failure, you will suffer from the same degree of cavities as Vanessa. Just then, the system sounded in Mag's head. The F***ck. Mag raised his brow. He could not help but diss, "System, isn't this mission a little too much? Her father and 2 brothers have been trying to kill me, and they have not given up on that idea yet. I am already kind enough not to put anything in her food. How can you expect me to help her with her dental problems? Are you a fool, or do you take me for a fool? Host, she should not be the one to be held responsible for others' mistakes. That is not logical. Besides, as a true foodie and a kind person, she should be treated with kindness. Let her continue to be able to enjoy delicious food," the system said calmly. Mag looked at Vanessa, who was gargling with the warm water. He could not deny that she did look like a kind person based on the information provided. But I am a chef. As the candidate for the god of cookery, how can I snatch the job of a dentist? That is very unprofessional. System, where are your professional ethics? Mag refused to accept the mission. My mission is for customers to enjoy their food. No, your mission should be for the host to enjoy himself. Please do not go off topic. You only have 1 month. I can treat her dental problem, but you have to give me a contemporary dental kit. Her identity alone is enough to make the king hire the best doctor and healing magic caster for her. Since they are also at their wits' end, what makes you think that I, a chef, can do it? Mag pouted. The knowledge that he had could not allow him to clean Vanessa's teeth and fill her decayed teeth. The system fell silent for quite a while before it said, I can sponsor you a tube of crest. Piss off. Mag flipped the beef kebab as he looked at Vanessa, and fell deep in thought. As the only princess of the Roth Empire, if it had been just a simple case of cavities, it would have been long solved by the royal doctors. The troublesome part would be the abnormal case of long-term decay that the omniscient door had detected. Getting a chef to be a dentist. Humph, this F***ing system can really get things its way. Mag shook his head. He actually had no other ideas other than giving her a tube of crest. After gargling, Vanessa felt that much of the pain was alleviated. However, when she looked at the eggplant with garlic sauce, she fell into a dilemma. The delicious eggplant with garlic sauce was just as she had imagined, even exceeding her expectations. However, she was unable to enjoy its delicious taste. The sharp pain from her teeth made it impossible to continue enjoying such delicious food. Randy looked at Vanessa, and his heart went out to her. He did not have any ideas on Vanessa. He was just more concerned about Abraham's niece since he had been eating with him frequently. He still could not forget that sensual middle-aged lady boss. Perhaps he would look for her again one day and eat the noodles she made once again. Miss Vanessa, why don't you have some soft tofu pudding? Randy placed his bowl of savory tofu pudding, which he had not touched, in front of Vanessa, with a smile and said, try the savory one first, then the sweet one later. That way, you wouldn't be hungry at night as well. Vanessa wanted to reject him. Go ahead. He rarely would be kind enough to offer his tofu pudding to someone else. It's better for you to eat something soft, Abraham said with a smile and nodded at Randy. Your treat. Randy mouthed the words. Abraham's face fell, but the corner of his lips rose slightly. Thank you. Vanessa looked at Randy and smiled again. This time, she did not cover her mouth again. Her black teeth were somehow imperfectly beautiful. Her gaze was quickly captured by the tofu pudding in front of her. The milky white tofu pudding sat in a small bowl, doused with a reddish-orange sauce, along with some pickled vegetables on top. The faint aroma of beans wafted over, making one feel refreshed. How cute! Vanessa could not wait to try it as she scooped a spoonful of tofu pudding. The spoon cut the tofu pudding out easily, and the hole thus created was quickly filled by the reddish-orange sauce. The tofu pudding on the spoon wobbled slightly, displaying its incredible springiness. After looking at it for a while, she put the spoonful of tofu pudding in her mouth reluctantly. The moment the tofu pudding entered her mouth, it melted without the need to chew it. The refreshing sweetness of the tofu pudding and the savory taste of the pickled vegetables and sauce blended together harmoniously. The sauce gave the refreshing texture richness in taste, yet it did not cover the fragrance of beans. The tofu pudding was just like a mischievous elf that toured around in her mouth, gently licking the injured teeth, making the teeth that were still aching feel much better before gliding down her throat. There were remnants of the faint fragrance of beans, filled with a refreshing taste. It's delicious. What a magical bowl of tofu pudding, Vanessa said, slightly surprised. The pain in her teeth had decreased vastly. Not only did this tofu pudding not cause any harm to her teeth, but it also seemed to have the effect of alleviating her pain. The refreshing savory tofu pudding made Vanessa unable to stop herself from taking another bite. Very quickly, the bowl was empty. Your sweet tofu pudding. Yabimiya placed the bowl of sweet tofu pudding gently in front of Vanessa. One for those unaware, tofu is made of soybeans, or rather some fermented soybean milk or something. She could already smell the sweet smell of the syrup that accentuated the smell of beans from the tofu pudding. The three people at the table looked at Vanessa at the same time. She was still feeling upset about the eggplant with garlic sauce because of her toothache, but if she was to eat this sweet tofu pudding now, that would be making things worse. Vanessa apparently knew that too, so she was also looking at the sweet tofu pudding with a conflicted expression. Rationality told her that she had to follow what the doctor told her and stop eating tofu pudding. However, the food kept enticing her to take another bite, even if it was just a small bite. I'll just have a bite. In the end, she gave in to the food, and picked her spoon up to take a spoonful of the tofu pudding. The sweetness exploded in her mouth instantaneously. It was a refreshing sweetness that was not too sticky. The sweetness brought out the fragrance of beans completely into a taste that would make one thrilled and excited. Delicious! Vanessa liked this taste. The sweetness was just right, and it was a completely different experience from the savory tofu pudding. It was just like the most delicious sweet, making one reluctant to swallow it, yet it glided smoothly down her throat before she could even taste it properly. She closed her eyes as she enjoyed the aftertaste. When Vanessa opened her eyes, she scooped another spoonful of tofu pudding. Young mistress, didn't you say that you're only having a bite? Lola reminded her cautiously. The princess could not stop herself once she had sweets, but she really should not continue, as it would only aggravate her dental problems. I want to stop too, but my body isn't listening to me. Vanessa was a little frustrated with herself as well as she took another spoonful of tofu pudding. She had eaten many sweets. All the sweets from the Norland continent sent to the palace as tribute would always be brought to her palace for her to choose first. Only the sweets that she did not want would be shared with the other palaces. However, there was nothing that could be compared to this sweet tofu pudding. The syrup and tofu pudding seemed to be made for each other like the most exquisite and delicious sweet which had an incredible texture at the same time. This child! Abraham watched Vanessa as she took mouthfuls of the tofu pudding, completely submerging herself in its deliciousness. He could not help but shake his head with a chuckle. The way she ate was exactly like when she was still a child. She would always enjoy herself completely when she saw a delicacy. However, from today onwards, she was only allowed to have the savory tofu pudding. This would be the only bowl of sweet tofu pudding she ever had. I think Boss Mag must really be the best chef in the world to be able to make something so incredibly delicious. Vanessa could not help but exclaim after she put the empty bowl down. Boss Mag really is the best chef I've seen in the 28 years of my life. Not only is he skillful, his creativity is also unparalleled. Every new dish he launches will always make me pleasantly surprised. Randy nodded as he expressed his agreement with Vanessa. That's why I've decided to settle down in Chaos City. As long as I keep coming to the Mamie restaurant, I will be able to try new and delicious food often. You cannot find another restaurant like this in Norland continent anymore, Abraham said with a smile. He was very proud of his good taste. I've made my decision. I am going to settle down in Chaos City too, Vanessa said seriously. Oh no, you cannot do that. I have to send you back a few days later. Abraham quickly shook his head. He was still troubled over how he should report to the king later when he got back. If this girl wanted to settle down in Chaos City, his life would not be as carefree anymore. Lola, you can have this eggplant with garlic sauce, Vanessa said gently. She picked up the remaining half a bowl of rice and started eating. Since she could not have the eggplant with garlic sauce, she was only left with the plain rice alone. Luckily, the rice was also delicious without any side dishes. It was actually more fragrant the more you chewed it. Yes, Lola replied. The princess really should not be having the eggplant with garlic sauce anymore, so she would be the one to finish the remaining food. Although she felt bad for the princess, the eggplant with garlic sauce was really too good, and she quickly finished her bowl of rice. Vanessa even ordered another bowl of rice for her. The four of them finished their meals, and Abraham footed the bill. As he was about to leave with Vanessa, Abraham thought for a moment, and motioned for Vanessa to wait for him for a while as he walked towards the kitchen. "Boss Mag, can I have a few words with you?" Abraham said to Mag as he stood at the kitchen door. Mag turned the fire off and plated the fried rice before handing it over to Bablat. He turned to look at Abraham, and said, "What is it?" "I have a niece who really loves the food you make, but her teeth aren't very healthy, so she can't take anything spicy or too intense. At the same time, she can't chew on anything that's too tough. Can you please make her food a little blander and softer the next time we come over for a meal?" Abraham said softly. "I see." Mag looked at Abraham, and softly said, "I do have some knowledge on dental care. Why don't you bring her over tonight after we're closed, and I help her take a look?" "Boss Mag, you even know how to treat dental problems?" Abraham looked at Mag in shock. "I believe in letting my customers eat healthily," Mag said calmly. Abraham thought for a while. Be it the beautifying effects of the tofu pudding, or the hair-growing effects of the Buddha jumps over the wall, they all showed that Mag had an ability that doctors and healing magic casters could not compare to. Perhaps he would really have a way to soothe or even treat Vanessa's toothache. "Sure. I'll bring her over when operating hours are over." Abraham nodded and turned to leave. "System, I don't want the crest anymore. Get me some Yunnan Bao of better quality and also a toothbrush with soft bristles," Mag said to himself. Successful swap in sponsorship materials. Prescribing Chinese medical toothpaste with long-lasting effects in process, also, give her a dental checkup. Even if you're not going to help to treat her, you have to at least help me with the right diagnosis, Mag continued. A full set of professional dental checkup costs 555 copper coins per session. Hee. Mag rolled his eyes. This fellow would never forget about making money. He pursed his lips and said, "Do it." For the sake of his teeth, he had to make sure he treated Vanessa's dental problem. He would never want to say goodbye to all the good food just because of decayed teeth. Successful retrieval of saliva sample, foreign matter near the teeth, and blood sample. X-ray completed. Analyzing results. "I believe him since he can make such good food," Vanessa said with a smile. Although she only had a few bites of the eggplant with garlic sauce that had been on her mind, the 2 sets of tofu pudding still made her extremely satisfied, and she already had her view on Boss Mag's culinary standard. A gourmet who could defy anything impossible with shocking creativity and innovation. He was the best present God could bestow upon a chowhound. She had to admit that she was already smitten. The menu was just like a treasure chest waiting for her to discover, and then she would be able to enjoy the happiness that the food brought. "Tell me, what do you want me to say to His Majesty so that you can stay a few more days in Chaos City?" Abraham asked as he looked at Vanessa pamperingly. Abraham had 3 sons but no daughters, so he had always doted a lot on Vanessa ever since she was young, and would always bring her out of the palace to play. His heart broke when he saw how Vanessa had become moodier and quieter in recent years. She basically stopped smiling. He did not think that this girl would become a completely different person after coming to Chaos City. Not only did she talk more, but a smile also reappeared on her face, and she became much more jovial. That surprised him a lot. Vanessa pondered seriously for a while, and said, "Just say that I am very happy here, and I intend to stay over here for a period of time. I will be with you, so there is no need to worry about my safety." "You sure know very well what your father would be worried about," Abraham said with a smile. It was close to what he had in mind. When he got back, he would write a letter and send an eagle to deliver it back to Rhodes so that the king and queen would not be worried. As the horse-drawn carriage traveled towards Abraham's residence in the center of the city, a shadow appeared on the roof of a building by the street. It looked in the direction the horse-drawn carriage was heading to, and then disappeared without a trace. The results of the system's checkup came out quickly. Compared to the rough description of the omniscient door, the system's test results were clearer and more professional. The saliva sample was oddly acidic, which is corrosive to the enamel. The accumulation of highly corrosive acidic matter and the presence of various rare germs can be found on the surface of the teeth. There is a severe case of periodontitis. There is an obvious case of swollen and bleeding gums. The oral mucosa is severely damaged, and signs of bleeding were observed. The structure of the teeth is gravely affected. The corrosion of the enamel is very serious, which impacts the ability to chew. Results of blood analysis: blood sample is acidic. Mag looked through the report in his mind and clicked his tongue. It seems like this little princess's dental problem is not caused simply by eating sweets. After all, too many sweets were said to cause diabetes, but not your blood and saliva to become acidic. On top of that, the omniscient door did not show that she had gastric problems, so he could eliminate the possibility that it was gastric acid reflux. As someone with no medical knowledge at all, this report was basically of no help to Mag other than making him realize the seriousness of the issue. If it's acidic, we can add some alkali to neutralize it. Mag started to solve the problem with his knowledge of science. Host, I have to remind you that the body's acidity would not be affected by the acidity of the food that it takes in. This is a completely different concept from neutralizing gastric acid. The system's voice sounded. Then are you going to put her on a drip? Or give her some special medicine? You gave me this stupid mission, to let me, a chef, treat someone's dental problem. Are you being reasonable? Did you steal another system's mission and send it to me? Mag rolled his eyes unhappily. Please get your attitude right and be proactive in the treatment, the system said weakly before completely disappearing. At the same time, a reminder appeared at the corner. The Yunnan Bio medicine has already arrived. It's in the third drawer at the counter, and it comes with 3 soft bristle toothbrushes free of charge. Feeling guilty? Mag raised his brow. Although he was used to the system being unreliable, he still had to slowly come up with a plan to treat this Princess Vanessa's dental problem. When the operating hours had ended, everyone cleaned up and got back to the dormitory. Connie had not returned after going out to deliver the food. Mag had nothing to worry about, since the deputy warden of the Basti prison was her master. In any case, she only needed to deliver 1 order every day for the time being. He did it purposely so Connie had more time to train herself. He just did not know if it was enough for her. Nothing good will come out of the Orcs being too united. Mag just took off his apron and chef's hat when the doorbell rang. Aren't we already closed? Amy looked at the door curiously. It might be for something else. Mag opened the door, and there stood Abraham, Vanessa, and a servant. Boss Mag, we'll trouble you, Abraham said with a smile. Hello, Boss Mag, I am Vanessa, Vanessa said with a slight smile. Her eyes were glittering with admiration as she looked at Mag. Mr. Mag was indeed very charismatic from up close. Mag looked at Vanessa. Her small and delicate face did make her a typical pretty lady. Although her black teeth formed a stark contrast with her face, it was not sufficient to conceal her beauty. Smiling, he replied, I am Mag. You have a very beautiful smile, Miss Vanessa. Vanessa was slightly stunned when she heard that. She saw the warm smile and sincere gaze from Mag, and her heart skipped a beat. She was certain that he was not lying. What a strange feeling. She had not heard anyone praise her smile for a very long time. Even if there were praises, they were all hypocritical lies because of her status. People hated her teeth, hated her smile, and would always criticize her behind her back. However, Mag praised her. Randy is really a boy compared to Boss Mag. Abraham sighed to himself. At the same time, he grew increasingly cautious of Mag. If this man is willing, all he has to do is give the beckoning finger, and the princess will most probably be hooked. That wouldn't do. Lola also watched Mag cautiously. She was a little resentful towards this fellow who rejected the king's invitation, and caused the princess to leave the palace to come all the way here. Although the food he made was good, seeing how he flirted with the princess made him look like a crook. He must have some ulterior motives. Please, come in. Mag held the door and stepped aside to make way for them to enter. Father, are you changing to a different pretty big sister tonight? Amy looked thoughtfully as she saw Vanessa walk in. Hello, big sister. Amy nodded. Although this big sister's teeth looked a little strange, they were still very beautiful. Hello. Anna nodded slightly, and also looked at Vanessa curiously. Mag closed the door and motioned for Vanessa to take a seat before standing in front of her. Smiling, he said, I am not a doctor, so I might not be able to give you much help. I can only be certain after I take a look at your teeth. Okay. Vanessa nodded. She looked at Mag and felt an inexplicable sense of trust that made her willing to show him even the ugliest side of herself without feeling any pressure. Instead, she was even a little hopeful that he could help her in one way or another. Although he was just a chef, she felt hopeful. Here, open your mouth, Mag said softly. Vanessa opened her mouth and revealed her teeth. Mag looked at Vanessa's teeth. Since he had already received the report from the system just now, this was just to rationalize what he was going to do. Although he already knew what to expect, when he actually saw Vanessa's teeth, Mag could not help but be shocked. The teeth that were supposed to be neat and clean looked as though they had been corroded by sulfuric acid, leaving numerous holes of various sizes. There was also a layer of black plaque at the surface of the teeth, which looked extremely difficult to remove. The most seriously decayed tooth was already completely corroded, leaving only the gum. It was really difficult to imagine that this set of teeth belonged to a 16-year-old. Can we still do anything about it? Vanessa asked Mag. Lola watched Mag a little nervously. If he could help treat the young mistress's teeth, he would not be such a bad guy, after all. Abraham looked equally expectantly at Mag. The king had once called upon all the famous doctors and all the healing magic casters from the Magus Tower, but none of them could cure Vanessa's teeth. There was even a rumor saying that she was cursed by the gods, and that was why her teeth were all decayed. Such rumors were obviously very hurtful to a young lady in her prime. I can't be certain. Mag shook his head. Vanessa's heart sank a little. She had already heard the same words from countless doctors and magic casters. But we still have to give it a try, right? Mag said with a smile. Vanessa looked at Mag's smile and felt warm. She regained some hope, and nodded her head slightly. The thing with dental problems is that timely and effective cleaning and care is important. Now, what we have to do first is to make sure that your teeth do not get any worse, and get rid of the dental problems. After that, we can try to mend the teeth slowly so that they would go back to normal again, Mag said. Young mistress would always rinse her mouth after her meals. She is very mindful of her oral hygiene, Lola said. Did this fellow think that Her Highness's dental problem was because she was unhygienic? Mag shook his head slightly, and said, I know, but it is not sufficient to stop at brushing your teeth with sea salt and rinsing your mouth to keep your mouth clean. This is especially the case for Miss Vanessa. Then what should I do to clean them? Vanessa asked. Mag walked to the counter and took out the Yunnan Bio and 3 toothbrushes that the system sponsored. He showed them to Vanessa, and said, This is the toothpaste I made. Use it once after you wake up and before you sleep every day. Toothpaste. Vanessa looked at Mag, bewildered. This was the first time she had heard about something like that. Besides, it was even made by Mag and stored in a flat, round container. Because it has a paste-like texture and is for cleaning the teeth, I named it toothpaste, Mag explained. After that, he opened the cover of the container, and peeled off the seal inside as he said, This is a soft bristle toothbrush. Press the bottom part of the toothpaste to squeeze out some toothpaste the size of a pea on the toothbrush. Rinse your mouth first before putting this toothbrush into your mouth. Brush lightly on the top, the bottom, the left, and the right of your teeth continuously for 3 minutes. After that, spit out the foam and rinse your mouth again with clear water. That would be the end of one toothbrushing session. Vanessa looked at Meg with a lot of doubt. I have drawn out a detailed instruction manual for you. Just follow the instruction manual when you return. Meg passed a folded piece of paper to Vanessa. All right. Vanessa received the instruction manual with both hands. Toothbrushing is very important. You must remember to do it twice every day, before you sleep and after you wake up. You can look for me again if you are out of toothpaste. You can use this soft bristled toothbrush for a month. After a month, change to a new toothbrush, Meg instructed. Vanessa nodded. She felt warm and fuzzy inside because it had been a very long time since anyone instructed her about small things like this so gently, and this person was a stranger that she'd just come to know. Perhaps she might just be a stranger to Meg, but his eggplant with garlic sauce had already appeared in her dreams several times. Although she could not see his face clearly every time, he still felt very familiar to her. Also, your cavities had already affected your gums, so if you eat anything too stimulating, you will be harming your teeth and gums again, and this is not helpful to your recovery. So, from today onwards, you cannot eat anything sweet, spicy, or stimulating anymore, especially before you sleep at night. You are not allowed to have anything other than plain water to drink, Meg said seriously. At this very moment, he suddenly felt like he could be a doctor. Then the sweet tofu pudding, Vanessa said meekly. No, Meg shook his head. He pulled a menu over and flipped it open before saying, not just sweet tofu pudding. You are not allowed to eat dishes like pepper steak, steamed fish head with diced hot red peppers, beef kebab, and spicy grilled fish before you recover. Vanessa glanced at the few dishes left on the menu and pouted her lips with grievance. However, she also knew that it was for her own good. Even though she was very unwilling, she still nodded obediently. He seemed quite professional, and is even more detailed than those doctors. Those doctors only told the princess to eat fewer sweets, and not to cut sweets out completely, so her teeth continued to get worse. Lola looked at Meg with surprise. The question is whether Her Highness could control herself. All right, go back early to rest. Meg placed the toothpaste and toothbrush in a small wooden box, and passed it to Lola, who was standing at the side. Thank you, Boss Meg, Vanessa thanked Meg as she stood up. Treating dental problems takes very long. I believe you will be able to persevere, Meg said with a smile. I will. Vanessa nodded. When they were walking out, Abraham walked a little slower. He grabbed Meg's hand, and he said, Boss Meg, if Vance's teeth can get better, I must repay you heavily. You're too polite, Meg said with a smile. To him, he was to suffer the consequences if he did not treat her. Chapter 1236 Helena is going southward. Alrighty. Amy's and Anna's eyes brightened, and they followed Meg obediently. On the other hand, Vanessa had also returned to the manor that Abraham bought in Chaos City. Vanessa took out her crystal jar that contained all kinds of sweets as soon as she went in and sat down. She opened the cover and used her slender fingers to pick up a beautiful blue sweet. Lola wanted to remind her upon seeing that. Vanessa's fingers halted before they even left the jar. She looked at the sweets in a crystal jar and hesitated before releasing the sweet that she had picked up and replaced the cover. She shook her head, saying, No. Boss Mag said I couldn't eat sweets again. I have already promised him. She stopped herself. Lola was a little surprised. Usually, the princess would only stop after eating a few sweets, no matter how she tried to talk her out of it. She didn't expect her to stop herself today, just because she had promised Boss Mag Lola, take this sweets jar out into the garden, and bury it in some place that I can't see. I don't need it anymore, Vanessa said, and passed the jar of sweets to Lola. Princess, this was given to you by His Majesty on your 10th birthday. Are you really going to bury it? Lola asked hesitantly. This exquisite sweet jar was carved out of a single piece of the best crystal by the best carver in the Roth Empire using a year's time. There wasn't a better looking sweets jar than it in the world. Bury it. I don't need it anymore, Vanessa said with conviction as she looked at the sweets jar in her hands. Otherwise, I will want to eat sweets every time I see it. All right. Lola took the sweets jar over carefully. She knew the princess had to be very determined to make a decision like this. Moreover, teeth were indeed more important than a sweets jar. His Majesty would also be very glad if the princess's teeth could be better. As Lola went out with the sweets jar, Vanessa started reading the instructions given to her by Mag. The instructions were clearly written and illustrated the brushing techniques and requirements. Boss Mag is really a detailed and caring person. A smile appeared on Vanessa's lips, and his smile appeared in her heart again. Moreover, his drawings and words are beautiful too. Lola only came back after some time. Vanessa picked up a toothpaste and a toothbrush, and said, "Let's go and wash up. I want to brush my teeth." It was a very novel experience for Vanessa to use the toothbrush and toothpaste to brush her teeth for the first time. She'd initially thought the white toothpaste would taste unpleasant in her mouth, and a toothbrush full of bristles would hurt when she brushed her teeth, but what surprised her was the toothpaste felt very cool when it entered her mouth, and the soft bristles brushed the teeth and gums like a small gentle hand giving them a massage. The cool sensation seeped into the gum, and the nagging ache in the deep part of the gum seemed to be comforted, and the gum then nourished and moisturized. The tiny drop of toothpaste turned into a lot of foam after the soft toothbrush brushed it over the mouth cavity and the gaps between the teeth. It's so comforting. Vanessa followed the postures mentioned in the manual, and brushed the teeth from all directions. The teeth that always hurt at night and had to be deceived by the sweets were completely mollified. The soft brush licked across the teeth and gums, bringing a very delightful sensation. 3 minutes passed by easily, and Vanessa spat out the foam in her mouth. There were traces of blood and black little spots among the white foam. Bleeding gums were a common occurrence to Vanessa, but it was her first time seeing those little black spots. Were they the black stuff on her teeth removed by the brushing? After rinsing her mouth with water, Vanessa heaved a breath of relief. Her mouth felt a refreshing sensation, with a hint of jasmine fragrance. The teeth felt as if they were deeply cleansed too. The swollen gum and the aching roots were greatly relieved, and the refreshing sensation surrounded the teeth. "Princess, is it effective?" Lola asked gingerly at the side. My mouth felt very refreshed after the brushing, and even the teeth have stopped hurting." Vanessa nodded. The pain relief medicine prescribed by the doctors before used to make her drowsy, and was far less effective than this toothpaste. "Really?" Lola exclaimed happily. She knew how the princess looked when she was in pain. She didn't expect the pain to disappear after using this toothpaste to brush her teeth. This effect was simply amazing. "Boss Mag is really a formidable person," Vanessa said with emotion. Lola nodded in agreement. She would be nice to anyone who was nice to the princess. Wind Forest, the Starry Cave. Helena stood on an elevated platform, and said to Sally standing below, "Do you know which one of these stars is yours?" "I don't know." Sally gazed at the starry sky through the hole at the top of the cave. She shook her head slightly as she looked at the brightest star of all. "If that star fell, you would be the brightest new star in the sky," Helena said, pointing to that brightest star. "Then, the entire sky would lose its brilliance." Sally frowned. Even though the light would be dimmer, it would still be better than having the whole starry sky destroyed by one shooting star. Helena's voice turned cold as her gaze landed on the star in the center that was shrouded by a mist. Sally remained silent. Helena lowered her head to say to Sally, "Tomorrow, I will lead the troops southwards to exterminate the night elves." You will be coming with me. Kill her personally and you will become the new elf princess. Sally pursed her lips and clenched her fists subconsciously. Your family and the entire elf race need you to stand out to do this. Helena's voice became even colder. Remember, I still have many other choices. Yes. Sally finally nodded after remaining silent for a long time. Milord, there is an urgent report from the forest. High Priestess Helena will be leading the troops southward tomorrow, and she will be expected to arrive 2 days later to launch an attack on the underground cavern, a young commander who just strode into the tent said respectfully to Borg, who was discussing his strategy with his generals. Lord Borg, High Priestess Helena wants to win for herself. Should we attack and take the underground cavern first before she arrives? The queen went into seclusion, and the princess started a rebellion publicly. Many families in the Wind Forest are still observing the current situation. They would support the High Priestess if she gained more fame after squashing this rebellion. The commanders in the tent all decided to speak up. Those slaves were useless, but do you think Irina is a pushover too? I am waiting for Helena to come and fight it out with her so I could gain from their fight. Borg smirked, and the terrifying dark streaks could be vaguely seen. Helena is leading her troops southward today. They will arrive at the underground cavern 2 days later. Early next morning, Mag received a secret missive from the Grey Temple. Chapter 1237 The sparks of the revolution will never be extinguished. Mag looked at the extremely short missive in his hands, and confirmed the severity of the matter. Helena moving southward was already fixed, and now the timing was confirmed. 2 days later, the allied forces of the Wind Forest would merge and launch a combined attack on the underground cavern. Given the Night Elves' total strength, they wouldn't be able to hold off the combined forces. Irina couldn't do it all on her own, hence the Night Elves' imminent defeat. Mag pondered in silence for a moment before burning the missive into ashes. It seemed like he would have to make a trip to the north soon. However, he had no idea what opinions Chaos City had about this news, and if they would be doing something about it. That messenger delivered the letter to him without mentioning anything else. He only told him to go to the city lord's castle. As Mag was still deep in thought, Amy and Anna woke up and came down. As she rubbed her eyes, one of the little ones told Mag, "Father, the school is going to have a break soon. Can I register myself for the variety show at the end of the term? Join the variety show?" Mag was a little stunned, but he quickly nodded with a smile. "Of course, Amy, just register if you want to take part." Amy didn't dare to talk to strangers in the past, but now this little one was getting bolder and bolder. She even wanted to take part in the variety show. This was a big improvement. "Then, can Anna perform together with me?" Amy asked expectantly as she held Anna's hand. Mag looked at Anna, who was equally expectant, and smilingly said, "In this case, I will go look for Teacher Luna. I guess she would agree." "This is fantastic. Father, I love you." Amy threw herself at Mag happily, and kissed him on his cheek. "All right. You two go and play. Father has to make breakfast for the grandmas and grandpas cleaners now." Mag also kissed Amy on her forehead before putting her down, and went into the kitchen. Of course, he couldn't ignore the Night Elves' matter. However, if they continued to hold up in the underground cavern, they would have to face endless attacks, even if they survived the current attack. As for how to expand the numbers of the Night Elves rapidly and shake the core of the Wind Forest's rule, that would have to depend on how fast Irina could figure things out. He had already passed her the theories through Pyrrhus, but whether she could understand and put them into practice, the crux was still Irina. "Comrades, please allow me to address you so, because we are a group of elves with the same ideals. We have gathered together here for the same objective." In a gigantic rock cave, Irina stood at the center, and the other elves sat around her. They looked at her with a determined gaze that was full of trust and hope. "We have risen up to fight for freedom and started this night revolution, and those oppressors who have tried to smear us, denouncing us as traitors and besmirching our revolution, have decided to use great forces to exterminate us and crush us in our infancy. But, we will never give up, and the sparks of the revolution will never be extinguished. Irina said determinedly, raising her fist over her head. The sparks of the revolution will never be extinguished, the elves shouted in unison as they clenched their fists. They were all very agitated. Irina's gaze swept across the face of each and every elf. Many of them had injuries on their faces even though they had the terrain advantage. They still suffered a lot of losses, but there weren't any traces of fear and despair on them. We have dispelled all 3 waves of enemies' attacks, but the 4th attack would be coming soon. Furthermore, we have reliable information from Wind Forest that Helena is already leading her troops southward. She will combine her forces with Borg and launch a final attack on the Night Elves, Irina said in a calm voice. The cave began to quiet down. The elves were not terrified, but the overall atmosphere was low and pessimistic. Just the Borg's forces alone had already stretched the Night Elves to their max. If High Priestess Helena's forces were to join in the extermination, no one would be able to leave the underground cavern alive. I want some of you to leave the underground cavern secretly, and return to the Wind Forest and the surrounding villages. You have to spread what we are doing now to the other elves. We are fighting for the freedom of the elf species. We are trying to build an elven state that doesn't have oppression and strata. We want an elven state with freedom and equality. This is a difficult choice, but to preserve the seeds of the revolution, we have to do it. Irina's voice became severe. All of the elves were shocked to hear that, and they looked at one another at a loss. Shirley stood up and asked Irina, "How about you, princess? Are you leaving with us?" All the elves looked toward Irina. "No, I will stay and fight." Irina shook her head, and said with a determined gaze, "The Night Elves cannot afford to evade this battle, or else it will become the excuse for the rulers to continue to oppress the weak. We have to show our strong will, and even if we cannot win, we are going to take a piece of them with us so we can tell our people that as long as we are united, their rule is not unshakable." Shirley gazed at Irina with a beam in her eyes as she raised her magic caster's staff up, and exclaimed, "I will follow you into battle. We will follow you into battle." All the elves stood up and raised their weapons and magic caster's staffs as they exclaimed with fire in their eyes. Irina looked at all of them, feeling extremely touched. However, she shook her head, and said, "This battle is destined to be difficult to win. What we have to do is to show the oppressors the guts of the Night Elves, but most importantly, we have to preserve the seeds of the revolution. We have to scatter the seeds among the people and turn them into sparks, and one day, these sparks will set the entire Wind Forest on fire." All the elves were thoughtful. An old elf stood out with a smile, and said, "Let the little ones go and contribute to the sparks. We old fogies will be the firewood. We will follow you into this battle and burn for the final time. We hope the future of the Wind Forest could be how we wish it would become, a free elven state." Yes. The racial wars then had failed to bring about a better Wind Forest. So, let us old fogies fight for one last time and kick off the war for freedom. Another elderly elf stood out. More and more elderly elves stood out. Hardships and time had left many traces on their faces, but they still had warm smiles. In the secret chamber of the city lord's castle, Michael and Roland looked at Mag stared at the map in front of him, absorbed in his thoughts. He came to the city lord's castle to have a discussion after completing the breakfast service. They were going to discuss Helena bringing her troops southward to annihilate the Night Elves. This is a war without any doubt. The Wind Forest has the absolute advantage with their number of troops and powerhouses. They could crush the Night Elves easily. Regardless how complex the underground cavern is, it is not going to withstand the magic attack by thousands of magic casters at the same time. Mag retrieved his gaze from the map and looked at Michael and Roland. However, if the Night Elves were annihilated, the Wind Forest's internal conflicts would be reduced by half, and they would most likely follow the Roth Empire and vote against the peace treaty's extension. This isn't a good news for Chaos City. Irina and the Night Elves have already shown extremely strong resilience by forcing the Wind Forest to send out such a big number of troops. Michael shook his head. But, like what you said, this is a war without any doubt. This also implies that if any external force wants to be involved, they would have to go all out. This means this force would have to go into direct conflict with the Wind Forest, even starting a total war. This is an outcome that neither Chaos City nor the goblins want to see. Mag was silent. Michael's words had reason. Even the goblins who placed their troops at the border wouldn't want to go into battle with the Wind Forest now. On the Norland continent now, no forces would extend help to the Night Elves. Even if the Night Elves were suppressed, Borg and Helena's conflict is becoming increasingly acute, and they have the same numbers of followers. There is still no news about the Elf Queen, so these two are going to fight each other for control over the Wind Forest. It will be easier to stir up disputes between them than to help the Night Elves, Roland commented. It isn't a good thing to most of the elves regardless which of these two obtains the control of Wind Forest in the end, Mag said with furrowed brows. This outcome would be considered as a good outcome when compared to a chaotic world, Roland said calmly. Mag didn't refute Roland's point. He had read up on much information about the racial war. That was a disaster that swept across the entire Norland continent, and nobody wanted it to ever happen again. But what if Alex extends his help? Given his previous declaration and his relationship with Irina, he would not look away while the Night Elves face total annihilation, Mag continued after staying silent for a while. For a war, a man's power ultimately can't alter the result. Even if he is Alex. Roland shook his head. There are dozens of 10th-tier powerhouses in the elf species, and Borg and Helena are at the pinnacle of the 10th tier. Moreover, now they are all rushing to the underground cavern. This lineup is even much more powerful than the assassin lineup for that rainy night's assassination. If Irina wants to leave, nobody is able to stop her, but the Night Elves would most probably not survive. Michael sighed. The ideal of the Night Elves is similar to our Chaos City. If they are given enough time, maybe they could be the next Chaos City. Therefore, Chaos City is not going to do anything. Michael asked Roland and Michael. Regarding this matter, Chaos City cannot do anything. Roland nodded. I know those two young ladies are with the Night Elves, but I am afraid we can't do anything regarding this matter, Michael said with some resignation. Mag's vision and outlook made Roland and him very impressed. His talents at manufacturing were even more astonishing. However, in this world, a lot of compromises had to be made. I understand. Mag nodded, without much reproach. Being the people in charge of Chaos City, Michael and Roland had to be responsible for the residents of Chaos City. If the Night Elves could survive this combined attack, we would provide them with some help within a certain limit, Michael added. Mag came out of the City Lord's castle with a heavy heart. Since Chaos City had said clearly that it wouldn't intervene, then the goblins in an alliance with it obviously wouldn't take the risk to declare war on the elf species because of the Night Elves. Mag rode his bicycle to Chaos School. He wanted to discuss with teacher Luna Amy's wish to perform at the term-end variety show with Anna. Luna smiled and nodded after she heard about Mag's intentions. Of course. Anna is coming to school next year too. It is a good thing to let her experience the school's atmosphere in advance. Thank you, Teacher Luna. Don't mention it, Mr. Mag. I believe the children would like to watch Amy and Anna's performance too, Luna said smilingly. After coming back from the school, Mag sat in front of the map for half an hour. His gaze eventually locked on the boundless sea realm. Since there were no forces willing to assist the Night Elves in this world, then a force that didn't belong on the map, Lantist, would help them. Mag's gaze became determined. Even though he wanted to continue to hide this trump card, if the Night Elves were annihilated and Irina died, everything would be meaningless. During lunchtime, Mag put down his chopsticks after he finished his lunch quietly with the rest. He stood up and gestured to Mia, who was going to clear the table, to take a seat first. He said to all of them, I have to discuss a matter with all of you. What is it, boss? Is the hot pot restaurant going to open today? Mia asked curiously. She didn't hear any renovation noises coming from next door, so the hot pot shouldn't be released so soon, right? The rest also looked at Mag. They stopped smiling when they saw his serious expression. Shirley and Ferris have gone to the underground cavern at the border of Wind Forest and the goblins to join the Night Elves. You all know about it, Mag said softly. Anna jerked her head up to look at Mag. Yes. They have been gone for so many days already. I wonder how they are doing over there? The underground cavern most probably isn't very comfortable, right? Babla nodded. She had a very good relationship with Ferris. There still should be fighting between the Night Elves and the elf species? Or, they should still be surrounded. Elizabeth said with furrowed brows. Although she didn't have much contact with the outside world, she'd still heard some bad news. Gina listened to their conversation with wide eyes. She could understand about half of what they were saying now. I heard the news when I went out today. The Night Elves are still surrounded by enemies who are many times their size, and a massive army is moving toward them, preparing to exterminate the Night Elves once and for all. They don't have any reinforcements or ample powerhouses. Mag looked at all of them with a determined gaze, and said, maybe it's time for Mamie Restaurant to do something now. 2. Chapter 1239 Giant Dragons, please take the alfresco seats. Count me in. Yabimiya raised her hand up too, and said with a determined gaze, although I am still very weak now, as long as Shirley and Ferris need me, I will still go. This sounds rather interesting. Count me in then, Babla said enthusiastically. Her only long trip after coming to this world was sending Gina back home to the boundless sea realm, so she was very interested in this new world's war. After all, there had never been a war in the Moon Nation. I am going too. Gina raised her hand too. Even though she didn't understand what Mag said completely, she knew Ferris was in danger and needed help, so she definitely could stay out of this. Although I have no idea who the two of them are, if there is a need, count me in too. Connie raised her hand, and proudly said, I can run very fast now. Can I go too? Anna asked carefully. She wanted to go, but she also knew she most likely would be a burden. Mag looked at all of them, feeling very consoled. There was indeed still warmth in the Mamie restaurant. You people have no idea what kind of opponents you are facing, and innocently thought that as long as you went, you would be able to help the Night Elves push back their enemies. Camilla's sarcastic voice rang out as she looked at the excited staff who wanted to rush to the north immediately with resignation in her eyes. In order to annihilate the Night Elves, the Wind Forest sent out 10,000 crack troops, including dozens of 10th-tier powerhouses. Recently, Helena is also going to join them with thousands of troops. Dozens of 10th-tier powerhouses, 20,000 of elven crack troops, so what can you do even if you get to the underground cavern? Camilla just received the secret missive from her tribe yesterday, so she was well aware of the elves and the Night Elves situation. The restaurant fell into a silence instantly. They were all calculating how many people she was talking about because there were less than 10 of them. But, what does it have to do with us going to rescue Big Sister Shirley and Big Sister Bean Sprout? Amy asked, feeling puzzled. Yes. There are only us they could wait for to go. Should we simply stand aside and watch just because there are many enemies? Although she had no idea how spectacular it looked when 20,000 soldiers stood together, she just couldn't accept watching her good friends die alone without any help. I want to go too. Anna's gaze became determined too as she said to Mag, Uncle Mag, I want to join the Night Elves. If only the spell formation wasn't damaged, I could ask Father to lend me 20,000 soldiers. Then, we would be equal in strength, Babla said, feeling very depressed. Gina, I need Lantis to do the first task for me, Mag said to Gina. Please say it, Mr. Mag, Gina said to Mag seriously as she stood up. Completing 3 tasks for Mag was Lantist's promise. I want all the warriors of Lantist who can leave the sea to proceed to the underground cavern to assist the Night Elves, Mag said in Lantistine. I will pass on your words to the High Priest using the flying fish. I believe he will keep his promise. Gina nodded. The powerhouses of Lantist will go with us, and we will have equal numbers of powerhouses with the Wind Forest. Our objective is not to fight to the death with the Elves, but to assist the Night Elves to fight off the Wind Forest's troops, Mag said to all of them. Lantist? What kind of power is that? They are on par with the Elves. Camilla was perplexed. Although the Elves weren't among the top powerful species, it was still a big tribe. However, she had never heard of a power called Lantist before. You will naturally find out if you go with us. Mag piqued her curiosity deliberately. Camilla was a 9th-tier powerhouse. If he could rope her in, she would be a very strong assistance. Camilla gazed at Mag and pondered for a moment before she finally nodded. Even though I don't know them, if you are not lying about the powerhouse's numbers and capabilities being equal to the Wind Forest's, count me in. You won't be disappointed. Mag nodded, and then he turned to say to Elizabeth and Mia, Elizabeth, I need your help to transport the Lantistines to the underground cavern. Sure. Although I am still not good at fighting, I already learned how to fly. Mia nodded straight away. Elizabeth hesitated for a moment before she nodded slightly too. She knew that Mag wasn't lying, and the numbers of Lantist's powerhouses were equal to the Elves. However, she hadn't expected Mag to use a chance to control an entire species for 2 former employees of the restaurant. We have to keep this mission a secret for the whole time. We cannot tell anyone, or else it will bring us trouble. Can you all do that? Mag asked all of them gravely. Everyone nodded. Camilla hesitated for a moment before nodding too. After all, the relationship between the Elves and demons had never been good, so it was all right that she kept this from her tribe. Everyone reached a consensus and ended the mobilization meeting. Mia and the rest cleared the table, while Mag passed the secret missive that he wrote in the morning to Gina. Gina summoned a flying fish with wings, stuffed the missive which was rolled into a tiny roll into its mouth, and ordered it to fly back to Lantist. Without the backing of a strong army, Mag was very clear that he had to play a stronger role in this war. Thank goodness he still had 15 minutes to use. Moreover, he still had to consider how to conceal Mamie Restaurant's involvement in this war so the Wind Forest wouldn't seek revenge on them after the war. After the lunch service ended, Mag let the system complete the renovation of the designated hot pot area, and connected it to the restaurant before hanging a new sign at the door. The hot pot is officially released. Customers in a group, please find a table that matches the number of people in your group. Customers who came alone, please take a seat at the 9-seater area and take a square for yourself. The hot pot will only commence after all 9 seats are occupied. P.S. Giant dragons and customers who can easily transform, please take the al fresco seats. Wow, Boss Mag is so efficient. The trial only took place yesterday, and the hot pot is released today. Moreover, the renovation is complete. Vanessa, who came to line up at the restaurant early, turned to say to Abraham, Uncle, let's have hot pot today. Hot pot, Abraham murmured. Boss Mag didn't say Vanessa couldn't eat hot pot yesterday, but the reddish pot didn't look very friendly. Vanessa obviously saw Abraham's hesitation, and quickly promised, I can take the clear broth one. I won't touch a single chili. Randy came up and smilingly asked, can I sit at the same table with you guys? Jinx, we came with a mission. It's not good to go and eat first, a golden dragon asked hesitantly. This would not affect our agenda at all, because our mission is going to that restaurant. We can eat and do our mission at the same time. Jinx chuckled rather happily. This was a wonderful mission. At the same time, a few frost dragons glided across Chaos City's sky, landed in the city, and transformed into human form. A young man swiftly approached them as the frost dragons landed, and respectfully said to the person in the lead, "Lord Fox, we've obtained reliable information that Miss Elizabeth is working as a service staff member in that Mamie restaurant. Should we go over there right now?" A cold gleam flashed across Fox's eyes, but he quickly suppressed it. With a smirk, he said, "Let's go and see how our Miss Elizabeth looks as a service staff member." "Fox, we came to invite Miss Elizabeth to return to our tribe on the Great Elder's orders. I hope you can control your tongue and behavior," an elder at the side said in a deep voice. "I know what to do." Fox strode straight ahead. That elder stared at Fox's back and sighed. The feud between Fox and Elizabeth obviously couldn't be resolved. It was still unknown who would be the chief of Frost Dragons ultimately. However, what was already certain was that Elizabeth had already displayed a strong potential. It reminded them of Rankster who went against all odds. Be it that fortitude or that grit of hers, they were equally touching and couldn't be ignored. Furthermore, what was different between Elizabeth and Rankster was that the Golden Dragons had announced that they were willing to accept Elizabeth into the Golden Dragon tribe. They were even willing to accept her into the race to become the tribe leader of the Golden Dragons. Among the younger generation on Dragon Island, Elizabeth's power had already leaped to the very top. If there was no surprise, she would be at the very top level of the entire Dragon Island ultimately. Thus, after they had ascertained Elizabeth's position, Douglas decided to send people to invite Elizabeth to return. He even ordered Fox to come personally. This was a form of submission that had never appeared in the history of the Frost Dragon tribe. If everything was as expected, the Golden Dragons were already on their way. The Golden Dragons who lacked younger talents didn't try to conceal their desire for Elizabeth. Although asking a Frost Dragon to be the tribe leader of the Golden Dragons sounded ridiculous, there was after all 1/4 of Golden Dragon's blood in Elizabeth's body. Given Rankster's reputation, the Golden Dragons wouldn't mind looking ridiculous. This was after all a world that was controlled by the mighty. In order to let the customers understand how to eat hot pot better, the staff of Mamie Restaurant decided to do a live demonstration of the proper way of eating hot pot again. Everyone from the Mamie Restaurant had a good time eating the hot pot as they sweated profusely. The customers watching them were sniffing and gulping with aggrieved expressions. Mag used a tissue to wipe his red lips, and then loudly said on the steps, "Let's line up, everyone. We will be starting out business officially shortly. The designated hot pot area will be open today. Customers who choose to eat hot pot, please take a seat at the designated area on the right. The designated hot pot area only serves hot pot and drinks. No other foods will be provided. That means I have to give up on the tofu pudding if I choose the hot pot? Oh my, isn't this cruel? What about my stinky tofu? I want to eat stinky tofu and the hot pot at the same time. In this case, I suddenly feel that beer should go very well with the hot pot." Boss Mag has specially set up the designated hot pot area and custom-made the hot pot dining table. There would be insufficient space to place the food if we want to eat other dishes along with the hot pot. Plenty of customers moaned, but many of them did understand. The center of the hot pot table was the hot pot, and a set of silverware per customer had to be placed along with all kinds of hot pot ingredients. There was indeed no space left to place other dishes. Mag went into the restaurant with a smile. He didn't make any further explanation. The hot pot was released in a hurry, and he didn't manage to recruit new service staff in time. Even though the hot pot was semi-DIY, they still needed people to place the orders and serve the ingredients. The number of customers would double, and the already busy service staff would be even busier tonight. Mia and the gang cleared the table, while Elizabeth used her frost magic to clean the oil stains off the table thoroughly. The hot pot dining table became spotless instantly. "Wow! This beautiful big sister is awesome," Vanessa praised. All the service staff of the restaurant were extremely beautiful. She believed she didn't have the looks even if she went to seek employment as a service staff member at the restaurant. In the entire F&B industry, only Boss Mag could make an 8th-tier Frost Dragon clean tables, Abraham said with a complicated expression. This wasn't a simple case of extravagance anymore. Giant dragons were an extremely proud species, and given an 8th-tier powerhouse's pride, they simply couldn't be any restaurant's service staff. Our Miss Elizabeth is so adept at using her frost magic for cleaning tables. A frost dragon is actually working for a human at a small restaurant and servicing these stupid and crass fellows. Is the great elder still considering letting her be the chief of the frost dragon tribe? Fox was looking at Elizabeth and sneering at her in the crowd. There was a hint of anger on the other frost dragons' faces too. Such a behavior was smearing the frost dragon tribe indisputably and shaming the whole species. That elder was also looking at Elizabeth with a grave expression. They thought Elizabeth ended up in Chaos City because she was injured, but they couldn't see any signs of unwillingness from her expression, and her breathing was even, which meant her injuries were healed completely. Then, why was she using her frost magic to clean tables? Had she lost her pride as a giant dragon powerhouse? Elizabeth seemed to have sensed something, and she turned to look toward Fox and the group in the crowd. She furrowed her brows, and the temperature around her dropped instantaneously. Yabimiya linked her arm with Elizabeth's, and smilingly said, "Let's go back and prepare ourselves too. Boss is so bad. We ate till we were sweaty all over." Elizabeth retrieved her cold aura immediately, and followed Yabimiya back into the restaurant. She said in a low voice, "Mia, do not receive those fellows wearing white clothes today. They aren't good people." "Hey!" Yabimiya wanted to turn around. "Don't turn around. Don't let them notice you." Elizabeth released Yabimiya's hands and strode into the restaurant by herself first. "Line up? What's that?" One of the giant dragons was puzzled. "It means standing behind those people." One giant dragon attempted to answer the question. "We are the Golden Dragon Warriors. How can we line up? Isn't it just a meal? We can just walk to the front," the last giant dragon said in a sulk as he walked to the front of the line. Facing Krasu, who was the first in line, he said, "Hey, old man, we're the Golden Dragons. Let us cut." The Jinx's face changed as he quickly tried to stop him. "Wait! He's Bam!" Before Jinx could even finish his words, the dragon that went up to Krasu flew over their heads with an even faster speed, crashing right into a bush several hundred meters away. "Krasu, the Lord of Fire! The Lord of Fire!" The other two golden dragons who were rolling up their sleeves, getting ready to avenge their brother, silently rolled their sleeves back down. They looked around and used their big hands to fan themselves, pretending not to know that fellow. That golden dragon crawled back out from the bush after quite a while. Even though he did not sustain any injuries, such a fall did not seem light. He watched Krasu warily. "This old man is too scary." The other customers were all secretly shocked when they saw Krasu send that golden dragon flying with a single blow. At the same time, they dismissed the idea of cutting the line. After all, not everyone had the confidence to get back up after that kind of blow. Looks like the Golden Dragon tribe did receive news. The leader is Jinx. The people from the Frost Dragon tribe also noticed Jinx and his gang. Elizabeth's issue was originally the Frost Dragon tribe's internal affair, but the Golden Dragons had to meddle with it, forcing them to lower their stance. Otherwise, if Elizabeth joined the Golden Dragon tribe, it would not only be a loss of a future powerhouse, but also the making of a great foe. Meanwhile, they also took extra notice of Krasu. They had long heard that Krasu and Urian had settled in Chaos City and took in a disciple, but they never expected to meet him today at this restaurant. "Don't tell me that's the Lord of Fire, Krasu," the golden dragon who was sent flying asked softly as he walked back while rubbing his chest. "Congratulations! You've guessed correctly." Jinx nodded and led the team to the end of the line. "Oh my gosh! I actually tried to cut the line in front of the Lord of Fire." That golden dragon began to massage his chest, feeling extremely lucky that he was not killed in that blow just now. "Look, those people from the Frost Dragon tribe are here too," one of the golden dragons reminded. Some people really have very thick skin to have the guts to come. If it had been me, I would have hidden away, Jinx scoffed. He did not control his volume, so Fox and his gang could hear him. Humph! Fox snorted coldly. His eyelid twitched as he suppressed his anger. The other frost dragons did not look too good, either. The Golden Dragon tribe and the Frost Dragon tribe did not get along well to begin with, and Elizabeth's issue only served to make things worse between them now. The customers who were between the two groups of giant dragons could feel the intense heat and cold at the same time, but they did not dare to utter a word, because they were all 9th-tier giant dragons. Are they the ones who hurt you? Yabimiya asked Elizabeth with concern when she entered the restaurant. Elizabeth watched Yabimiya for a while and hesitated. Then she nodded. This time, I will definitely protect you. I am not going to let anyone hurt you, Yabimiya told Elizabeth. Elizabeth felt warm inside, but helplessly said, they are very powerful, much more powerful than I am. And I will still stand in front of you, Yabimiya said with resolution. Mag, who just changed into his chef's uniform, came downstairs and reminded everyone to get ready before walking to the door. He pulled open the restaurant's door with a smile, and said, Welcome to Mamie Restaurant. The customers who are here for the hot pot, please proceed to the designated hot pot area. The other customers can proceed to the original seating area. Mag quickly noticed Fox's and Jinx's group in the line. He paused for a while. Since they have appeared here in a group, it's probably because of Elizabeth. They've already found her. Are they going to capture and bring her back? This made Mag feel heavy. All of them were around 8th to 9th tier, so it would not be that simple. The customers who had been craving hot pot entered the restaurant and greeted Mag, while the latter responded to them one by one with a smile. Vanessa paused at the door, and gratefully said, Boss Mag, thank you for your toothpaste and toothbrush. My teeth haven't hurt at all today. Remember to brush your teeth day and night, Mag said with a smile. The omniscient door's description of Vanessa's dental problem had not changed at all. It was apparent that it would not be something that could be changed by brushing your teeth once or twice, but it was a good thing that he was able to help alleviate her pain. Vanessa nodded and entered the restaurant, walking straight to the designated hot pot area. Thank you, Boss Mag, Abraham told Mag gratefully. He could tell that Vanessa was no longer in so much pain, and that made him happy. The customers took their seats. When the Frost Dragons and Golden Dragons were next in line, there was only a 9-seater left at the designated hot pot area. The two groups glared at each other, and went over to the table at the same time. At that moment, one could feel the competitiveness between them. No one said anything, but it felt as though battle could break out any moment. *CK, I was just a little late. Is there a need for so much excitement? Harrison looked at the only spot left and the two groups of strong men dressed in silver armor and gold armor. He hesitated for a very long while, but still gave in to his craving. He walked over cautiously and sat at the last table. The two groups of giant dragons looked at Harrison at the same time. This fat and stupid human being. How dared he sit at the same table as them? Harrison smiled at the two groups politely. His fat jiggled, and he pointed to the square in front of him and meekly said, I want this square. Where? The giant dragons stared at each other, none of them willing to speak in case they gave themselves away for not knowing anything. Since the giant dragons did not speak, Harrison did not dare to make a sound as well. Although he appeared calm, he was actually extremely flustered. If it wasn't because he didn't want to wait an hour for the hot pot, he wouldn't want to have a hot pot with 8 giant dragons. Fox, I heard that the pig Alex threw at you caused you some very serious injuries. Seeing that you've come all the way over to Chaos City, are you all recovered now? Jinx asked Fox with a smile, not trying to hide his sarcasm at all. The other golden dragons also laughed. That was Dragon Island's news of the year. That was probably the peak achievement of that wild boar from Fire Dragon Island, being almost able to kill the candidate for the chief of the Frost Dragon tribe. Harrison raised his brow. He glanced at Fox, and the corner of his mouth twitched as he suppressed his smile. This smile could very well kill him, but that was really too funny. A giant dragon that could fly was actually severely injured by a wild boar. Could it be that the wild boar could fly? The frost dragons all did not look too good. This matter had already made the Frost Dragon tribe the laughing stock of the entire Dragon Islands, and they could hear people talking and snickering everywhere they went. Right now, Jinx actually did it outright without leaving any face for the Frost Dragon tribe. Fox also had a long face. This would be part of his dark history that he could never erase. He looked at Jinx and scoffed, "Jinx, you used to have the reputation of being the talent of the Golden Dragon tribe, and were going to be the chief's successor, but right now you are here for an abandoned frost dragon? Do you want to make her your queen? The golden dragons are such scavengers." "Chief? I gave up the position willingly." Jinx looked at Fox with a smile, and said, "You don't know just how much our chief wants to pass the position to me, but I just refuse to take it. Isn't that infuriating? Continue consoling yourself, then." Fox's temples pulsed. He wanted to punch Jinx's annoying smiling face. This fellow could easily reject the thing that he had always wanted for all his life. He was very angry, so angry he wanted to rage. One must know their limits. Rankster beat both our tribes hands down back then. Those who were unable to accept it were all killed by him. With such a scary person as the chief, no one would dare to challenge him, Jinx said with a hint of sarcasm. "But what are you? You've only managed to get to the 9th tier at 400 years old, and no one knows how many pills you took secretly. You're incomparable to Rankster. Even his daughter is about to overtake you. You couldn't defeat her father back then, so now you're going to pick on the young one. Don't you find your actions very shameless? If I were you, I would knock my head on a sow and end my life." Harrison turned around as he released his smile silently. These giant dragons might just kill him. Fox's expression was very bad. If he had not received the Great Elder's warning not to cause any trouble before coming, he would definitely have fought it out with Jinx. "What are you looking at? Can you beat me?" Jinx asked with a smile. "Jinx, don't go overboard," the elder sitting beside Fox shouted coldly, and the surrounding temperature suddenly dropped. The frost dragons all released their auras. "Do you want to pick up a fight?" Jinx and the other golden dragons released their auras as well. The tension between both parties rose, and it felt as though a fight would break out any moment. Harrison grabbed onto the table and tried his best not to slide down the table. He really did not have it easy just for a hot pot. "Forget it. We are not going to hold it against you today. We are here to persuade Miss Elizabeth to join the Golden Dragon tribe and become the candidate for the next chief," Jinx said with a smile as he leaned back comfortably and suddenly withdrew his aura. The moment the resistance disappeared, the frost dragons hesitated, and withdrew their auras as well. Today, both parties had the same goal, and that was Elizabeth. The Golden Dragon tribe was Elizabeth's grandmother's tribe. However, no one could know for sure if she was willing to return to the Golden Dragon tribe, as she grew up in the Frost Dragon tribe ever since she was young. Besides, her grandmother had been sentenced to death by the Golden Dragon tribe. However, Elizabeth was almost killed in the battle for the position of chief in the Frost Dragon tribe, and no one was willing to lend her a helping hand. In the end, she was only able to escape because of Alex's sudden appearance. Under such circumstances, no one could know for sure which tribe she was willing to return to. Harrison was stunned when he heard that. He didn't know that Miss Elizabeth had such an identity that would make both dragon tribes vie for her. At this moment, he only had one comment. "Bravo, Boss Mag. Hey, little fatty, what is this pot for?" Jinx asked Harrison. "Jinx, haven't you come before?" a golden dragon asked. "This wasn't here the last time I came." Jinx shrugged. "Little fatty, Harrison looked left and right. Yes, you, little fatty, Jinx repeated. After making sure that Jinx was calling him, Harrison suddenly lamented that it had been more than a decade since he heard someone call him that. Now, people usually called him darn fatty, big fatty, uncle fatty. It seemed rather reasonable for him, a big fatty in the eyes of a normal person, to be called little fatty considering the dragon tribe's lifespan of several centuries and their wingspan of 100 meters. These giant dragons came at the wrong time. They did not experience watching Boss Mag and his family's mukbang one, and they didn't even know what hot pot was. Harrison, who was always afraid to interrupt them, finally had the chance to speak. He cleared his throat softly, and began, "This is hot pot with 9 squares, and we happen to have a table of 9, so we can each claim a square. After that, all you need to do is dip your ingredients into your own square." The giant dragons looked at him, and then at the empty pot, bewildered. It felt as though everything paused for a while. Harrison also fell silent for a while. After that, he picked up the hot pot manual at the side. As he flipped it open, he said, "We have yet to add the base soup in. We have to order our own base soup. There are 2 kinds of base soups, the red broth and the clear broth. For the red broth, there are 3 levels to choose from: medium spicy, spicy, and insanely spicy. After you have chosen your soup base, we can start ordering the dishes that you want to eat," one from a Korean term that means eating show. Harrison felt like he had reached the peak of his life. After Harrison's complicated explanation, the giant dragons were still a little lost. "What you mean is we have to cook our food?" a giant dragon asked Harrison. The other giant dragons also looked at Harrison. As the powerhouses of their tribes, they would never be the ones to cook their food. That was the job of the weak ones. "Let me correct you, it's dipping your food into the hot pot, not cooking." Harrison picked up the hot pot manual. "Look, there are clear instructions here. Each ingredient has its unique way of dipping and a specific time you have to dip it for. As long as you follow the manual, even a 4-year-old can make their own food." The giant dragons all looked at the hot pot manual with a frown, but no one took the initiative to pick it up. The atmosphere turned awkward once again. Harrison shut his mouth tactfully. Although he also felt that it was impossible for him to make any good food, seeing the little boss and young Anna dip their food and enjoy eating it made him believe that he would not fare worse than 2 children. Just then, Elizabeth walked over, and asked, "What soup base and ingredients would you like?" The giant dragons cast their gazes at Elizabeth all at once. As Rankster's daughter, it was difficult for people to dismiss Elizabeth casually even though she had now become a service staff member of a restaurant. She did not avoid any gazes, and looked extremely calm. "Humph! If my late brother knew that his daughter actually works as a service staff member in a human's restaurant, he would probably be unable to rest in peace," Fox said sarcastically to Elizabeth. "Then you'd better pray that he's dead. Otherwise, your greatest regret will be not getting killed by that boar," Elizabeth said coldly as she glanced at Fox. Fox's expression changed slightly. He recalled the giant dragons that were tortured to death by Rankster and shuddered. If he wasn't dead, how can there be no news of him after so long? You should stop holding on to the hope that he will come back and back you up. Fox tried to make himself sound as calm as possible. "He had never backed me up, and I don't need anyone to back me up." Elizabeth pressed her lips together. "Even if he is dead, one day, I will also do what he did to make you pay the price for your doings." "You?" Fox was infuriated. How dared Elizabeth threaten him? "Miss Elizabeth, we are here to fetch you home." The elder sitting beside Fox looked at Elizabeth, and said in a softer tone, "With your status, it is inappropriate to be a service staff member. This would ruin the Frost Dragon tribe's reputation. So do I only live up to your so-called reputation if I die on that Frost battlefield?" Elizabeth looked at that elder and the other 2 Frost Dragons slightly snickering at her. She was reminded of that day at Frost battlefield, seeing the elders standing on the elevated platform, and laughing coldly at her. Their smiles were so cruel and abhorrent. The elder frowned slightly, and his voice went deeper. The great elder wants us to bring you back. We have already decided not to pursue the matter, so you think I should be thankful for your generosity? Elizabeth interrupted. The elder was stumped as he watched the sarcastic smile on Elizabeth's face. It felt as though he could see the shadow of Rankster, who had once killed his way to Frost Dragon Island alone. The Frost Dragons frowned. They'd already taken a step back. What more did Elizabeth want? A group of elders bullying a young lady, and you still have the cheek to say that you will not pursue the matter? Looks like I've underestimated the shamelessness of the Frost Dragon tribe. Jinx smirked, and looked at Elizabeth with a smile as he said, Miss Elizabeth, I am Jinx of the Golden Dragon tribe. I'm here with the orders from our elders to invite you to Golden Island, where you will be made one of the candidates for the chief of the Golden Dragon tribe immediately. It will be a fair competition with the younger generation from the Golden Dragon tribe. The commotion in that area had attracted a lot of attention. When the other customers heard those words, the way they looked at Elizabeth changed. The successor of the chief of the Golden Dragon tribe. That meant that she might be the future chief of the Golden Dragon tribe. Oh my heavens! So the person serving them right now might very well be the future chief of the Golden Dragon tribe? Yabimiya, who was taking customers' orders, looked at Elizabeth worriedly. These bad guys have come. Are they thinking of hurting Elizabeth again? In the kitchen, Mag was also trying to figure out Fox's and Jinx's intentions for coming. He had seen the information on the dragon tribes, so he knew a thing or two about the history of the two tribes. Because of Rankster, the two tribes were once archenemies, but after Rankster beat them all up, they had nothing more to say. The relationship between Rankster and Alex was also a little complicated. They had battled with each other several times, with Alex having a slight upper hand. 3 years ago, Alex disappeared on that rainy night after being ambushed, and so did Rankster soon after. No one knew if he was alive or dead. Elizabeth was Rankster's only child, and was the most powerful one out of the younger generation in the Frost Dragon tribe. Fox was Rankster's younger brother. He had had the chance to inherit the position of the chief in the past, and now he was a strong competitor for the position of Frost Dragon tribe's chief. However, Fox was not a kind uncle. He had the intention to kill Elizabeth on the spot back at Frost Battlefield. Thankfully, she was saved when a wild boar came crashing down on him. Is he here today with people to take revenge, or does he have other intentions? The Frost Dragons slowly grew uneasy as they listened to Jinx. The Golden Dragon tribe had offered the position of their chief as their stake. If Elizabeth agreed to it, their plan for coming over would go down the drain. I'm sorry, but I won't join the Golden Dragon tribe. Elizabeth shook her head as she looked at Jinx. She was firm in her decision. The Frost Dragons were momentarily relieved. Why? The Golden Dragons are known to be upright and above board compared to those hypocritical Frost Dragons. You would be able to gain the respect and admiration of many giant dragons on Golden Island with your capabilities. Besides, you would not receive unfair treatment there. Jinx was puzzled. Back then, he returned all the unfairness he received double. Elizabeth rolled her eyes at Fox. I will do that too. Jinx looked at Elizabeth with admiration. This young lady was indeed like Rankster. He smiled. All right. The Golden Dragon tribe will always welcome you with open arms. You can come over to Golden Island anytime you like. Just a word from you, and the warriors of Golden Island will be willing to fight for you. Chapter 1244 If you're a man, you take the insanely spicy. Elizabeth made him feel like that once again. The strong sense of uneasiness made him want to kill her so that there would not be any more troubles in the future. However, this is Chaos City and Jinx is here, watching. This is not the right time to do it. The Frost Dragons all seemed a little uneasy. Rankster brought unrest to the Frost Dragon tribe, almost reforming the entire Frost Dragon tribe. Could Elizabeth want to follow in Rankster's footsteps? Many customers were taken aback. Elizabeth actually rejected the two great dragon tribes' invitation. That was cool. Please order your food, Elizabeth said calmly. You'd rather stay here to be a service staff member instead of going back to the Dragon Islands. I want to see how well you can hold on here. Fox scoffed inside as he watched Elizabeth before flipping the menu open. When Fox saw the insanely spicy of the red soup base, he felt himself squeezing his butt as he recalled the fear of the insanely spicy level of the spicy grilled fish during the peace talks. Little fatty. How do you choose the soup base? Jinx asked Harrison. The giant dragons all looked at Harrison. It was their first time having hot pot, so they did not know what to do, but they did not want to show it. If you're a man, you take the insanely spicy. Harrison said as he patted his chest. Interesting. Jinx nodded before he said to Elizabeth, for insanely spicy red soup base. Immediately, he gave Fox and the others a provocative look and mocked, why, don't you even dare to try the insanely spicy? So be it, who's afraid, a frost dragon suddenly said without hesitation, and the other two followed suit. Fox swallowed. Are you afraid? Jinx mocked. I'll have the insanely spicy, Fox said softly. This time, he consciously protected his butt with frost so it would not be too bad. I'll get spicy with lesser Sichuan pepper, Harrison said quickly. Hey! The giant dragons all turned to look at him. Didn't this fellow just say that a man should get the insanely spicy? I'm just a little fatty, Harrison said weakly. He just blurted it out, and did not expect these giant dragons to really order the insanely spicy level. The giant dragons all thought for a while, and accepted Harrison's words easily. That made sense. If the little fatty ate what they ate, they would seem like they were of the little fatty's standard. Please tick the soup pot you want, and then write down the number of servings for each ingredient you want to order, Elizabeth reminded. The spicy soup pot with 1 serving of each ingredient. Harrison picked up the pencil on the ordering sheet and ticked the spicy soup pot before writing 1 at each ingredient. Then I'll get the insanely spicy soup pot with 10 of each ingredient. Jinx wrote on the ordering sheet swiftly. Same. 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 The other 3 golden dragons quickly followed suit. The frost dragons looked at each other, and then chose to do the same. Please wait for a while. You can mix your own dipping sauce at the sauce section. Elizabeth cleared the menu and the 9-squared pot and went to the kitchen. While some of the customers outside were still waiting, the customers in the restaurant already had their hot pots ready. The way this soup pot is designed is outright discrimination against people who have light diets. Vanessa looked at the soup pot in front of her. The little pot with the clear broth was surrounded by the spicy soup pot. The ratio of the size was around 1:5, making it look like a pitiful little lamb that was surrounded by a pack of wolves. This design of a pot in a pot is functional and artistic, Randy complimented. He put a piece of beef into the pot, and smilingly said, I will start eating. Young mistress, what would you like to eat? I'll help you dip it, Lola quickly said when she saw that Vanessa was about to do it herself. With such a noble status, how could the princess prepare her own food? No, you do yours. I want to do mine. Vanessa picked up a long piece of duck intestine, and seriously said, Boss Mag said that the soul of eating hot pot was to do it yourself. There is no soul in the duck intestine made by someone else. After saying that, Vanessa stared at the clock on the wall as she dipped the duck intestine in and out of the clear soup pot. After around 7 to 8 dips, the duck intestine curled up as it would when it was cooked. After that, she put the duck intestine into her dipping sauce, and swirled it around. Because she could not eat anything too flavorful, Vanessa mixed her sauce based on the recommendation with oyster sauce, soy sauce, garlic, coriander, sesame oil, and a drizzle of boiling soup. The duck intestine cooled down a lot after being swirled in the sauce. Vanessa put it into her mouth and chewed softly. The duck intestine, which appeared to be very soft, was actually crispy. The texture and sound brought about an unparalleled experience for her teeth. Dipping the duck intestine up and down, switching between boiling and cooling, gave the duck intestine an interesting soul, while the dipping sauce gave the duck intestine its taste, allowing one's teeth and taste buds to enjoy a fantastic feast. Vanessa still felt the wonderful taste lingering between her teeth even after she swallowed the duck intestine. This duck intestine is superb. On top of that, I made it. Vanessa exclaimed with her eyes widened. What made it better was that she was the one who cooked it. For someone who had never stepped into the kitchen, or even saw a chef cook, the sense of achievement was stronger than when she received a gemstone from the king. Lola, who was still affected by the fact that the princess cooked her own food, saw how happy Vanessa was and smiled. It seemed like the princess really liked to eat like that. She would thus try this new eating method too. This beef is really premium grade, Randy said as he chewed on the beef. The beef was cut into very thin slices, so it could be eaten immediately after it was dipped once in the boiling soup. The tenderness and the rich smell of the meat made him intoxicated. After it was dipped in the spicy red soup base, the spiciness that was infused in the beef made one's scalp tingle, immediately getting rid of the cold from standing outside for more than an hour. It was an exhilarating feeling. Randy put another piece of beef in the boiling soup pot, and lamented, "The best thing in the world is probably to be able to eat meat because the meat will never lie to you or betray you. Every kilogram of meat you eat will add a kilogram to your weight. It is always honest like that." "I agree with what you said," Abraham said as he put a piece of tripe in the pot, and then glanced at his stomach. Chapter 1245 What happened to customers first? The strong smell of spiciness assailed their nostrils. One golden dragon turned his head away and sneezed. What kind of flavor is this?" The giant dragons all squinted their eyes, for the stinging spiciness was too much for their eyes to take. "This is the insanely spicy flavor that only real men dare to try." Harrison covered his nose and leaned back a little, secretly thankful that he only ordered the spicy level. Only lunatics would be able to take the insanely spicy flavor. He wondered if these giant dragons would go crazy after trying it. "We cannot lose to them." The giant dragons exchanged glances and all had the same thought. Isn't it just a little spiciness?" "This is nothing," Jinx said in a relaxed manner. He picked up a chili floating on the red soup base with his chopsticks and looked at Fox provokingly as he said, "One for you." After saying that, he started eating the dried chili. As he was chewing, Jinx's face started to turn red. This was not just a simple matter of spiciness. It was a suffocating kind of spiciness that would start burning the taste buds. The numbing and spicy sensation seemed to be able to permeate into the soul, making feel as though his soul had left him. His mind started blanking out, and so did his vision. **CK, the owner laced the chili with poison." That was the first thought that sprang into Jinx's mind. After that, he started recovering his vision, but the spiciness was still burning in his mouth. His forehead was filled with perspiration, but he still squeezed out a proud smile as he glanced at Fox, and said, "Afraid? **CK, this lunatic." Fox's heart thumped heavily, but his expression was still as calm as he said, "I am not going to make comparisons with an idiot." Harrison quickly adapted to the spiciness of his soup. He picked up a piece of tripe with his chopsticks, and imitated how Boss Mag cooked his tripe previously. This table was very big, and so was the 9-squared pot. Although the pot was split into 9 squares, each square was almost the size of a small pot, so it was more than enough for a person to do his own cooking. Also, it seemed that the 9 squares heated up independently. The 9 squares seemed to come to a boil at the same time, and there was no problem of the squares at the side being not hot enough while the square in the middle boiled too fervently. The tripe rolled around in the spicy soup pot, and gained a red coat before it was dipped in the dipping sauce and sent into Harrison's mouth. The spicy soup exploded in the mouth first, and then came the crispy tripe. The tripe was as thin as a piece of leaf, and it was not tough, either. The crispiness was completely unexpected, making one unable to stop eating. "This tripe is superb," Harrison praised. He did not think that he could actually make something so delicious. Harrison dipped another piece of tripe, looking very serious and focused as though he was doing something very sacred. He threw away all unnecessary thoughts, and made sure every action he did was done to its best so that the tripe could be in its best state. The 8 giant dragons stared at that piece of tripe in Harrison's hand. It was just a small and thin piece of tripe, yet it had to go in and out of the pot several times. Just looking at him made their heads hurt. However, this little fatty did make it look like it tasted really good. Another tripe was done. Harrison put it straight into his mouth as he closed his eyes and enjoyed its taste as he chewed. His eyebrows moved animatedly, and his face was full of happiness. The crispy sound when he chewed on the tripe could make everyone who heard it imagine how good it had to be. Gulp! The giant dragons swallowed their saliva almost simultaneously. "Damn, this little fatty is enjoying it a little too much." The giant dragons all looked at the 10 servings of ingredients by their sides, and were a little at a loss for which they should start with. "It seems like we should take a look at the manual." Jinx picked up the hot pot manual and started studying it. The other golden dragons followed suit. This was a different way of eating from what they were used to. They had to cook it themselves, so it was a huge challenge for them. Fox looked at the ingredients beside him, and then at the boiling soup. He frowned, and then turned his head to look at Elizabeth, who was serving other customers, as he said, "You, come over here to cook my food." Most of the customers who had already started cooking their food turned to look at Fox and Elizabeth. What is this fellow thinking? Is he trying to put Miss Elizabeth on the spot? Elizabeth froze. She put the soup pot down gently, and turned to say to Fox, "It is the restaurant's rule that customers must cook their own food for hot pot. Service staff does not cook the food. I am eating here, but you want me to cook on my own. What kind of bullsh**t rule is that?" Fox leaned in his chair and looked at Elizabeth cockily. "I am a noble giant dragon. My hands are used in battles, not for lowly things like cooking. Aren't you a service staff member? Come over right now to cook all my food. This is what you are supposed to do." Elizabeth clenched her fists, but remained calm. She did not want to affect the Mamie restaurant or implicate the people in the Mamie restaurant, because she knew very clearly what Fox was capable of. Seeing Elizabeth's expression, Fox grew bolder as he said, "What happened to customers first? I am now ordering you to come over and cook all the food here for us, then feed it to me. Otherwise, I will not let matters rest today." The commotion over here had already attracted the attention of many customers. They all looked at Fox with despisement. They felt that their appetite was ruined because of the appearance of such a scumbag in the restaurant. Couldn't he see that the service staff had to run a little because they were already so busy serving food? How could this fellow still want Miss Elizabeth to cook their food? What a scum! Elizabeth pressed her lips together, and hesitated for a while before she walked over with her teeth clenched. I'll do it." Just then, Yabimiya rushed to the table, overtaking Elizabeth. She picked up a pair of chopsticks as she got ready to take the duck intestine. "Mia!" Elizabeth paused in her steps as she watched Mia's back, and clenched her fists. "Who wants a lowly half-dragon like you?" Fox shouted with an angry frown as he looked at Yabimiya, but he suddenly stopped in shock. "Our people!" Jinx stood up all of a sudden as he looked at Yabimiya in shock. "Mia, come over," a gentle voice called out abruptly. Mag had appeared at the restaurant's entrance, and was beckoning Mia towards him coldly. Chapter 1246 Have you ever seen a wild boar that falls down from the sky? Yabimiya put down the chopsticks immediately and went over to Mag. "Wait!" Fox and Jinx exclaimed almost in unison. However, Yabimiya didn't hesitate this time. She went over to Mag straight away, hid behind him, and peeked over. These people were indeed bad people, and they looked so scary and unfriendly. Shock and fury flashed across Fox's face. He was furious that this insignificant service staff member dared to ignore his commands, and shocked that this woman was actually a golden dragon. If he had remembered correctly, she had only been a lowly half-breed when he'd come previously. Jinx and the other golden dragons were shocked as they were 100% certain that this maiden had extremely pure golden dragon blood in her, purer than any other golden dragons on Golden Dragon Island. However, Jinx remembered very clearly that he had seen this young maiden when he'd come previously, but he didn't have any strong impression of her, and only remembered her as the half-dragon server. What happened to her during this period of time that let her awaken the golden dragon's blood and become a real golden dragon? Mag kept Mia protected behind him, and calmly said to Fox and Jinx, "Mia is still young. If you have any problems, dear customer, you may talk to me. You are free to make any requests too. I will be a loser if I agree to any one of them." Mamie Restaurant could be considered established in Chaos City now. He even had the title of the City Lord's Castle's senior consultant, so he could be half considered as belonging to the staff of the City Lord's Castle. It was okay for him to be a little arrogant since he had the protection of a higher authority. Of course, since Mag could use a sow to seriously injure Fox, he could still beat him to a pulp now even if they began to fight. Mag's words made the customers smile. Boss Mag was still as principled as ever. This was a person who could even reject a 10th-tier powerhouse's request to have another bowl of tofu pudding. They began to relax. Elizabeth looked at Mag with a bright gaze, and a little curl appeared at her lips as she felt an unexplainable sense of security. "Do you know who I am? How dare an insignificant restaurant owner talk to me like this?" Fox shouted angrily. It was still all right to be affronted by Jinx and Elizabeth, but now even this restaurant owner talked to him like this. Amy suddenly came out of nowhere, and asked, "Hey, mister. Have you ever seen a wild boar that falls down from the sky?" Fox's expressions froze instantaneously, and the air seemed to freeze as well. "Ha ha ha." Jinx laughed out loud immediately, and joked, "Fox, has your legendary story become so famous that even children know about it?" All the golden dragons laughed hysterically at his expense. Harrison, who was dipping his hot pot and watching the good show, suddenly got the joke, and then he choked. He turned around and laughed uglily in pain. The spiciness was growing stronger in his nostrils, and he still had to control his laughter. Could they not tell jokes while people were eating, please? Fox glared at Amy with throbbing green veins at his forehead. He wanted to gobble her up badly. But very soon, his gaze discovered two big bosses who were staring at him. That was a deadly stare, and whatever tiny spark that rose up in his heart died instantly. He didn't want to experience that feeling of suffocation that he felt at the restaurant's entrance on his previous trip ever again, and nobody was going to plead for him this time. We usually don't point out people's weakness when we are scolding them. Amy has really inherited my forte. Mag looked at Amy, feeling very satisfied. When it came to dealing with their enemies, they had to let them experience the extreme coldness of winter. There was no need to abide by any rules with them. As he didn't dare to touch Amy, Fox's gaze shifted back to Mag. He coldly said, "I am your paying customer, and now I want your service staff to provide me service. What are you not happy about? Dear customer, the hot pot is already placed in front of you, and the ingredients are all served. The service rendered by the restaurant is all completed, so what are you not happy about?" Mag asked him with a smile instead. "Do I just want the pot and ingredients? I am a frost dragon, how could I do such things by myself? I want the service staff to dip the ingredients for me, and then feed them to me piece by piece," Fox said haughtily. "If you don't want to do it yourself, then why are you sitting at the designated hot pot area? Have you come to watch the chilies swim in the pot?" Mag used a concerned gaze reserved for mentally challenged children as he looked at Fox. "Moreover, do you have a problem with using your hands or your brain that you need people to feed you piece by piece? Sorry, if you need such service, please go home and look for your mom. Go back to her womb and remake yourself again. This restaurant doesn't provide such a service. Why you? Fox was furious, but he couldn't find words to rebut Mag, so he stuttered for a long time. Vanessa, who was chewing on enoki mushrooms, spat them out, and one landed on Randy's face opposite her. I'm sorry, sorry. The joke, that Boss Mag said is too funny. Vanessa gazed at the aggrieved Randy apologetically. Lola quickly handed Randy a silk handkerchief while trying to hold back her laughter. The customers started laughing too. Many of them who were eating the hot pot choked. They coughed and laughed at the same time. Pain really coexisted with happiness. At the same time, the customers had reached a consensus. Apart from being careful of Little Boss's fireball when they were in Mamie restaurant, they would have to be careful of Boss Mag's mouth in the future too. Boss is so awesome. Yabimiya, who was standing behind Mia, stared at his back in amazement. Even though Boss's tone of voice was different from his usual gentle tone, it felt amazing to listen to him scolding the Badu without using a single crass word. If it was her, she couldn't even say a single word. This is indeed father. I still have to continue to work much harder. Amy looked up to Mag thoughtfully with admiration. Elizabeth, who was initially quite worried, felt a sense of poetic justice as she looked at the frustrated Fox. Usually, it was only him scolding people. She didn't expect he would suffer a setback like this today. Mag was indeed surprising. Seems like I should ask this boss for tips when I get the time. If I can learn 30 to 40% of his quarreling skills, I would have no rivals when it comes to quarreling on Dragon Island. Jinx looked at Mag thoughtfully. Compared to the normal crass quarreling, this was much classier. Are you not afraid that I will tear down your restaurant? Fox stood up slowly, and the surrounding temperature dropped suddenly. Frost even appeared under his feet. Then you have to ask if they will agree to it. Mag simply turned and walked into the restaurant. And then, customer after customer began to stand up. You want to tear down Mamie restaurant? An elder wearing the Grey Temple's uniform asked Fox as he stared at him coldly. A 10th tier powerhouse. Fox felt his strong aura immediately, and judging from his Grey Temple uniform, he could guess that he was one of the 4 deputy lords of the Grey Temple. How would you go about tearing it down? A 9th tier demon looked at Fox with evil intentions. His presence at the peak 9th tier was as powerful as Fox's. He cracked his neck and made a cackling sound. Why don't you start with me, this old man, first? Novan, who was sitting across from Krasu, asked with a smile. There were powerful customers and normal customers, and they were all standing up at this moment and asking Fox with an unfriendly expression. This fellow was trying to tear down their holy land and insult their faith. This doesn't feel very right. Fox panicked instantly as he sensed gazes from all the big bosses. He didn't expect Mag would parry him like this so shamelessly. What should he do? Even Frost Dragon Island was no match for these people. There was no way he would dare to tear down the restaurant, as he most probably would perish on the spot. I am just joking. Building a harmonious society starts with me. How could I ever tear down such a beautiful restaurant? Fox said with a forced smile and an ugly facial expression. I like this restaurant. I love hot pot. There was a smile on Elizabeth's face, and she relaxed completely. She turned and looked toward the kitchen. She didn't expect Mag to use such an interesting maneuver to embarrass Fox. It was even better than beating him up. These customers are so awesome. Yabimiya gazed at the customers who were standing up around her with stars in her eyes. She had never expected so many strangers would stand up for the restaurant and support them. It felt great to be cared for and protected. Of course, this was all because of the boss. Boss's sincere attitude toward the food made the customers willing to stand up to protect the restaurant. That deputy lord of the Grey Temple came over, scooped up a bowl of red soup from the pot in front of Fox, and slammed it down in front of him. He gestured to him, and said, "Cheers." Fox looked at the insanely spicy red soup that had red chilies and red chili oil floating on top with an ashen face. "This is the chance for you to profess your love. You can't miss it," Jinx said, feeling schadenfreude. That mouthful of chili earlier had already sent his soul out of his body. Fox would most probably ascend to the heavens after drinking this bowl of red soup with chilies. Fox looked at those unfriendly gazes around him, and realized that if he refused to drink this bowl of red soup, he most probably wouldn't leave this place alive. However, this red soup... He gulped. His throat already felt the burnt before he even drank it. "You refuse." That deputy lord's voice became even colder. "Cheers." Fox lifted the hot bowl with both his hands after he felt the hostility. He tilted back his head and downed the red chili oil soup. The piping hot oil rushed into his mouth cavity together with the spiciness that resembled a hurricane. Fox heard a sound clearly. The taste buds were all scalded to death before they could even celebrate. Fox's face turned red immediately, and the redness quickly spread to his neck and head, all the way until his whole person became red. White steam emerged from his head as if he was in a sauna. The scary spiciness agitated the scalded wounds, and Fox's mind was completely blank. His vision had also become blurry as if he had gone blind. The spicy hot sensation made him want to open a hole at the top of his head to release some of the heat. The boiling red soup went down the throat like a blunt knife stabbing its way down slowly. That feeling was many times worse than killing him with a single strike of the blade. His body began to tremble uncontrollably, and it was comparable to any kind of torture. The broth entered its stomach, and before the heat could disperse, it exploded in his stomach like a bomb. His stomach began to cramp, and this pain from the inside of his body was comparable to having his limbs cut off. Rib. After a crisp sound, Fox's clothes exploded instantly, and dragon scales began to appear on his body. His body expanded instantaneously, and the chair he was sitting on was crushed to bits. He had transformed into a 30-meter-tall giant dragon in the blink of an eye. Roar! The frost dragon tilted back its head and let out an angry roar. At the same time, he spat out a red column of fire. Holy F***ck! Is this hot pot laden with drugs? It could even change his attribute. Jinx was shocked. This was the first time in his life that he saw a frost dragon spit fire. The other 3 frost dragons were shocked too, but they were surrounded by big bosses, so they dared not speak up, and could only look at Fox worriedly. Harrison was shivering, hugging his bowl. However, he didn't forget to take the duck intestine out from the pot and put it into his bowl before letting out a breath of relief. It was almost overcooked. However, he began to worry for himself as he looked at the 30 meters tall giant dragon next to him. It was he who recommended the insanely spicy level. Would this giant dragon, who was smashed by a pig before, look for trouble with him after this issue was over? That deputy lord looked up, and calmly asked Fox, "Did you become so big because you want to fight?" In the eyes of a powerhouse, there was no difference between an insect and an insect that became bigger. Fox knew that rationale very well, so he rapidly shrunk down into a 3-meter-tall miniature dragon. However, he was still in his dragon form because his body was undergoing repairs, and he couldn't maintain his human form. With a crushed expression, he said, "My lord, please don't take this the wrong way. I can only endure like this. Since you like hot pot, finish all the ingredients and broth. In the future, if you want to tear down Mamie Restaurant, come and tell me first. I will go and dismantle Frost Dragon Island if I don't get to eat the red braised pork," the deputy lord said seriously. "Yes, yes." Fox quickly nodded. He was feeling very aggrieved, but he didn't show it on his face. He felt horrible. The rest of the customers sat down, and continued to enjoy their food after they saw Fox surrender. Jinx looked at Fox, who was now dipping his hot pot obediently, before staring at Yabimiya who was busy serving the customers. He mumbled in his heart, I will have to talk to this young maiden later. A child of the golden dragons cannot roam around on her own in this world. Chapter 1248. He was a true hero indeed. Too old means past the best time for consumption, Harrison explained with resignation. Certain terms were used differently in different regions. Let me try the taste of this duck intestine. Jinx didn't care about what Harrison said, he simply put the duck intestine straight into his mouth. Spiciness was still the main melody, but after eating an insanely hot chili earlier, his resistance to insane spiciness seemed to have increased as he chewed on the duck intestine. Apart from the spiciness, the crunchy duck intestine gave Jinx's teeth a whole new experience, and as the taste buds got used to the spiciness, the aroma underneath it began to act up. The more he chewed, the more fragrant it got, and it dispersed the chill from sitting in the snow. Delicious! Jinx gave a thumbs up. This tiny duck intestine wasn't enough for him, so he dumped the 2 plates of duck intestines straight into the red soup pot in front of him. The duck intestine isn't supposed to be eaten like this. Harrison raised his hand in an attempt to stop him as he looked at the duck intestines in the hot pot with a heartache. This was a sacrilege to good food. Harrison tried to control his emotion as he remarked, the duck intestine is supposed to be dipped with chopsticks 8 times to achieve the best time for consumption. The duck intestine done like this would then have a soul. The method you use to eat is too sissy. It's not suitable for us giant dragons. Jinx pursed his lips in disdain as he dumped a plate of sliced beef into the pot and stirred with the chopsticks. He started eating when the hot pot began to boil again. This is a good idea. The golden dragons, who were counting the time carefully initially, began to copy him. Otherwise, given their 10-person portions, they might not even finish them by tomorrow morning. This is really stupid. Harrison swallowed the last few words for his own personal safety. He decided to ignore them, and continue to dip his tripe gracefully. The irascible insanely spicy didn't go easy on the giant dragons. They started to transform one after another as they praised the scrumptiousness of the hot pot. Eventually, they all had to shrink to the size of Fox, and continue dipping their hot pot while standing up. Harrison, a tiny fat chap who continued to dip his hot pot quietly while surrounded by dragons, also attracted plenty of attention. He was a true hero indeed. The novel eating method of the hot pot brought a whole new dining experience to the customers. In fact, it even gave some of them a very special misconception. Dear! I think that my cooking skills have improved greatly. In the future, let me cook your meals for you at home, Bonnie confidently said to Vicenio, who was sitting opposite her, as she took a bite of the potato. The pale Vicenio, who had just regained his wits from his crazy afternoon delivery, swiftly shook his head when he heard what Bonnie said. Why? Do you think my dishes are not nice? Bonnie pulled a long face. Vicenio quickly shook, and smilingly said, No, I am worried that the oil stains will dirty your delicate little hands. How could I let you do such things? That's true too. Bonnie looked at her dainty hands, thinking that it would be a waste to use them to do housework. Yes. I have more important things to do with my hands. Bonnie's hands squeezed Vicenio's thigh under the table. She licked her red lips as her smile became lustier. Vicenio's Adam's apple moved, and he suddenly wanted to go next door to order 2 more Ruggiemos. Who could withstand that? I think the best vegetarian ingredient is the sliced lotus root. It's so crunchy that it is delish. Vanessa chewed on sliced lotus root with a crunchy sound. It was neither too hard nor too soft, having exactly the right texture. It didn't cause any stress to her teeth. However, Abraham shook his head, and said, I think the enoki mushroom is better. It's absorbed the red soup's essence, so it tastes better than normal mushrooms. It's simply the king of the vegetarian hot pot. What's so nice about vegetarian food? Are you sure you are not trying the pig's brain? It's as tender as the tofu pudding. After absorbing the red soup, its taste is simply dreamy. Randy picked up a spoon, and scooped out the pig's brain from the red soup as he recommended it to them sincerely. Vanessa and Lola shook their head together at the same time. This pig's brain looked scarier than they had expected, and they lost the desire to eat it when they remembered it was removed from a pig's head. "Can you give me a little to try?" Abraham said hesitantly. "Since you gave me a treat yesterday, I will share half of it with you." Randy scooped half of the pig's brain into his bowl, and the other half into Abraham's bowl with a pained expression. Abraham used a spoon to pick up a little pig's brain. The pig's brain that was a little bloody when it was placed into the pot long became totally white. It was also coated with a layer of the red soup, which made it look very enticing. The spicy red broth had removed all the stench, and there was a special fragrance in the midst of the spicy aroma. As a gourmand, this was also Abraham's first time trying to eat animals' brains. He had never heard of anyone eating a pig's brain before. He ate the pig's brain in one mouthful. The spiciness that was just right made the taste buds tense up first, and the pig's brain began to melt in his mouth. The tender texture was indeed similar to the tofu pudding, but the tofu pudding's texture was lighter, while the pig's brain's texture was denser. The rich taste blossomed on the tip of the tongue, and together with the spiciness, it brought a special scrumptious enjoyment. "This taste is simply incredible." Abraham had an intoxicated expression. If the duck intestine and tripe could be described as a beautiful melody rendition for the teeth, then this pig's brain existed to bring the taste buds happiness. Abraham still felt unsated after eating half the pig's brain in the bowl with a couple of mouthfuls, so he raised his hands and ordered 3 more. "It's right to listen to me, right?" Randy was a little smug. Abraham nodded, and praised, even a pig's brain could be used as an ingredient. The hot pot indeed could be used to dip anything. This creation of Boss Mag will leave a huge mark on the FNB history. The first person in history. Only Boss Mag could be called that. Randy nodded in agreement. If a chef could only make one heirloom dish to the best, he could only be considered as a good chef, but not a great chef. But Boss Mag was different. His every new dish gave people a pleasant surprise. The unique and special cooking methods all had the energy to subvert the current food and beverage industry. It was very common to take 1 to 2 hours to eat per session of hot pot, hence, many customers waited for a long time before they got a seat. And Fox finally flew away, spitting blue flame from his mouth after the changes of 2 batches of customers and finishing the very last drop of the broth. Although the other frost dragons didn't finish the broth, they all had white steam rising from the top of their heads now. Their white dragon bodies had become pink too. They were all glaring at Jinx with red eyes. "Jinx, you golden dragons had better not try to take advantage of dragons when we are weak. You are not allowed to poach from the frost dragons, so you guys had better not cross the line. We, frost dragons, won't back down easily." That frost dragon elder huffed and spread his wings, preparing to leave with the other 2 frost dragons. "Wait a minute, you haven't settled your bills." Right at this moment, a weak voice sounded. "Bills?" All the giant dragons looked around them before lowering their heads to look at Anna, who was holding a little ledger. Anna took 2 steps subconsciously after being glared at by them. However, she still tilted her head back, and said, "Every one of you ordered 10 sets of the ingredients and a helping of the insanely spicy red broth. Total expenditure, 200,400 copper coins, plus 4 damaged chairs compensated at the production price of 500 copper coins each. You have to pay 202,400 copper coins in total. Why is it so expensive? Are you extorting us?" A frost dragon bent over and glared at Anna, casting a huge shadow over her. "Every ingredient on the menu is priced, and there are a total of 50 ingredients. Dear customer, you may count it yourself." Anna took out a menu and raised it over her head. Although she was a little scared, she didn't back off. The giant dragon's eyeballs glanced over all the zeros, and he felt a sense of dizziness in his brain. This wasn't a problem that he could solve. Right at this time, Amy walked behind them with her magic caster's staff, and mumbled, "You will pay for your meal, or we will crush you." That frost dragon shivered, and immediately took out his money as he was reminded of Fox's example. He counted an adequate amount of dragon coins, put them on the table, and flew away with the other 2 frost dragons embarrassedly. Jinx and his group took the initiative and settled their bills when they were almost done. He looked at Harrison, who was slumped in his chair, and astonishedly said, "Little fatty, you can eat a lot even though you are small." Brr! Harrison had a long burp, and sighed in relief before saying with resignation, "I ordered too much, but I didn't want to waste anything, so I forced myself to eat." The restaurant was almost going to close for its break, and the designated hot pot area no longer accepted customers. The customers who had finished eating didn't rush to leave. Instead, they were sitting down and having a chat, trying to digest their food a little. Otherwise, they couldn't even move. After Jinx and his gang had their break, they transformed back to human form again. However, they weren't in a rush to leave. They talked in low voices among themselves as their gazes locked onto Yabimiya, who was clearing the tables, but they didn't go forward to interrupt her abruptly. Did these fellows still discover it? Elizabeth frowned. Although the Golden Dragons treated their people very well, she didn't want Mia to go to Golden Dragon Island alone right now. Any place that was described as a paradise would still have a dark side. The Dragon Islands were still an area that revered the powerful. If Mia went alone, she would definitely encounter some discrimination. Mia could also sense that the several golden dragons were staring at her. She had learned a lot of information about her father from Elizabeth. Their grandmother came from the golden dragons, which was why she was different from Elizabeth, and had a golden dragon's blood. And when she saw them transform because of eating the hot pot, they looked exactly like her when she transformed. She indeed was a golden dragon. Different from the hostile fox and the frost dragons, she could sense some kindness from these golden dragons, and she started to have some unexplainable thoughts when she saw them linger after their meal. Are these people trying to ask Mia to return with them? Mag came out from the kitchen after frying his last dish. He narrowed his eyes after he saw Jinx and his gang still hovering around. Mag already knew Yabimiya and Elizabeth were sisters. He saw a portrait of Rankster, who had an important role in the history of the Dragon Islands, when he was reading on the information regarding the Dragon Islands yesterday. It was almost exactly the same as the picture that the system drew for Mia's father. And judging from Elizabeth's behavior, he was sure that they had already acknowledged each other. Since they chose not to declare it, he pretended he didn't know yet. This could also explain why Elizabeth was willing to hand herself over to Yabimiya on the brink of death. Even though they had different mothers, they were sisters, after all, and they only had each other in this world. Therefore, although Mia had been trying to look for her father, she still wouldn't be able to find him even if she went to Golden Dragon Island. The sisters had reunited, and Elizabeth had rejected both the apology from the Frost Dragons and the invitation from the Golden Dragons. He wondered what choice Mia would make. From Mag's selfish point of view, he naturally wished Mia could stay. He would never have another employee who was so obedient, hard-working, and eating so little. However, to Mia, going to Golden Dragon Island meant better opportunities. She was no longer that inferior half-dragon who was bullied by her nasty boss and fainted at the restaurant's entrance in hunger. She was a pure golden dragon now. She even inherited Rankster's talent, so her future was going to be very bright. It was indeed a waste for her to remain in the restaurant as a service staff member. Mag was gratified about Mia's growth, but at the same time, he felt sad like an old father seeing his child leave the nest. He looked at Jinx and his gang, who were still relaxing and chit-chatting there, and suddenly regretted he hadn't added another 2 more spoonfuls of the insanely spicy chili powder to their broth. Then, they could fly home while spewing blue flames. Everyone cleaned up the restaurant deftly after all the customers left, and prepared to take their leave. Jinx and his gang finally approached Mia. With their friendliest smiles, they said, "Nice to meet you, young lady. Can we have a word with you, please? Have a word about what? Mia asked softly as she got closer to Elizabeth subconsciously. We are golden dragons from Golden Dragon Island, and you are one of us. So, we'd like to invite you to return to Golden Dragon Island with us and become one of the Golden Dragons formally, Jinx said to Yabimiya sincerely. Your blood is very pure, and you would receive the best training resources and teachings from the powerhouses on the island. It wouldn't take long for you to become a powerhouse. Chapter 1250 Father, are you looking for a few more pretty big sisters again? Most probably nobody could reject it. Everyone looked toward Mia, feeling sad to see her leave. Were they going to lose another companion? Elizabeth looked at Mia too. She didn't make any requests of Mia earlier. Although she would face more challenges if she went to Golden Dragon Island, it was indeed a shortcut to becoming a powerhouse. Powerful and strong Golden Dragon elders could give Mia more guidance. At the same time, certain holy lands on Golden Dragon Island were also suitable for Mia to practice. Is big sister Mia going to leave? Amy grasped Mag's hand, feeling sad for her to go. Big sister Mia was very good to her, so she didn't want to see her go. Mag didn't make any comments. He would respect Mia's choice. This was his promise to them when they first joined the restaurant. However, Yabimiya was not a normal vagabond dragon, because she was already adopted. But I like being a service staff member in Mamie restaurant. I like it here, and I want to stay here. I don't want to go to the Dragon Islands. Mia shook her head at Jinx as she rejected him without any hesitation. You want to continue to be a service staff member, and not go back to Golden Dragon Island to be a powerhouse? Jinx repeated his question because he felt he had to have heard her wrong. Yes. I want to stay at Mamie restaurant. Mia nodded her head with conviction. What's so good about this restaurant? You would never become a powerhouse if you stayed here, and your talent would be wasted. You will grow very fast if you go to Golden Dragon Island, and could even become the chief of the Golden Dragon tribe. Isn't that better than being a service staff member at this restaurant? I can eat the most delicious food in this world for free in this restaurant, but I can't do that at Golden Dragon Island. The restaurant has the best boss, the best companions, and two cutest precious in this world, but Golden Dragon Island doesn't have them. I can interact with all kinds of customers in the restaurant every day, and listen to them talk about all the stories that happened on the continent. I can't listen to these stories on Golden Dragon Island. Furthermore, I am not just a server at Mamie restaurant, I am also the manager of an ice cream shop. The children are all waiting for me to make ice creams for them. They would be very sad if I left, but nobody would be sad if I didn't go to Golden Dragon Island. Yabimiya stated her reasons very clearly. Jinx opened his mouth and pondered for quite some time, but he was still at a complete loss for a response. Yabimiya bowed at Jinx as she sincerely said, "Thank you for treating me as one of you, but I only want to stay at Mamie restaurant and stay with the boss Mag and my lovely companions now." What an obedient and lovely child. Jinx was feeling very complicated. Bringing a very gifted child home was naturally a very positive affair, but he couldn't bring himself to say a harsh word when he looked at Mia's obedient expression. After hesitating for a long time, he took out a jade tablet and gave it to Mia. This is the Golden Dragon tribe's cultivation methods. You take it and read up first. If you have any questions, ask me when I come to the restaurant for my meals. Thank you. Mia received the jade tablet with both hands and bowed to Jinx deeply. She had learned from Elizabeth that cultivation methods were precious. Because Elizabeth was learning the Frost Dragon tribe cultivation methods, they weren't suitable for her. Hence, she hadn't started practicing the cultivation methods yet, and only learned about flying and some combat techniques. Elizabeth was also staring at the jade tablet in Mia's hands in astonishment. The cultivation methods of a tribe were very precious, so she hadn't expected Jinx to simply give them to Mia. In this case, Mia now had a set of suitable cultivation methods to practice. It's nothing. Jinx scratched his head before saying to Elizabeth, "Miss Elizabeth, if you decide to change your mind, please tell me any time. The Golden Dragon tribe will always welcome you." After saying his piece, Jinx and the other 3 giant dragons transformed and flew away. "Jinx, that was against the regulations," a giant dragon spoke up after they left Chaos City. "Yes. She'd refused to go to Golden Dragon Island, and isn't one of us formally. You could be punished by the elders if they found out that you gave the cultivation methods to her so easily," another giant dragon worriedly commented too. "Then, what should I do? I can't simply watch such a good youngster with potential wasting her time out there, right? She could even be bullied because she doesn't have any power." "This isn't how we Golden Dragon tribe conduct our affairs," Jinx countered. All the giant dragons remained silent. This was also why they hadn't voiced their doubts and stopped him earlier. "I will report this event to the elders myself. I believe the elders will agree with how I handled it." As for why she doesn't want to leave the restaurant, after tasting the scrumptiousness, it is indeed very difficult to escape from Boss Mag's clutches. However, a human's lifespan is only about 100 years. To us, 100 years is only a blink of an eye. After all those humans die, she will naturally return to the dragon tribe, Jinx said with a smile. However, he soon felt melancholic after realizing that he wouldn't have such delicious food any longer after 100 years. "Big sister Mia is not leaving. It's fantastic." Amy threw herself into Mia's arms and kissed her cheek ecstatically. "I thought you would be leaving suddenly like them." Babla shrugged her shoulders. Although she remained expressionless, she obviously heaved a sigh of relief. "Big sister Mia is the most adorable person," Anna said with a smile and reddened eyes. "Of course I can't bear to leave you guys. I want to stay with all of you forever and remain in the restaurant where I could always have delicious food and all of you, who are the nicest." Mia kissed Amy's cheek and stroked Anna's head before giving a huge and bright smile to everyone. Mag was full of smiles too. This was most probably the best outcome. Mia could stay and still grow stronger at the same time. All right. Everyone had to handle double the workload today. Thank you for working so hard. Let's go back for a good rest. I will put up a recruitment notice these days to recruit a few more employees for the restaurant. Then, we won't have to work so hard, Mag said to all of them. That's great. Gina still has some problems communicating with customers. It would be perfect if we could have another 2 more servers to serve the food, Mia said smilingly. Father, are you looking for a few more pretty big sisters again? Amy asked excitedly. Air.